I mean, my son got bit in the face by a dog, and he had to have 7 stitches in his face. And he still isn't scared of dogs. I mean, he's not scared of anything. Except for, I guess, his stepfather.
Sebastian. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. This is Lady Freedom here, coming at you with another raw narrative. It's so good to be here with you guys tonight. Thank you all so much for joining in. And I also want to just play that back really quick again. That's Seth Rogers talking about his missing son back in March of 24.
I mean, my son got bit in the face by a dog, and he had to have 7 stitches in his face. And he still isn't scared of dogs. I mean, he's not scared of anything. Except for, I guess, his stepfather.
Okay, and that's Seth Rogers. I want to play you guys a song that Seth has written for his son Sebastian, and it also has Sebastian's Law outlined. And so I'm really excited to share that with you guys tonight. It's a beautiful song. Just so very grateful that Seth is moving forward on this law. So I'm going to go ahead and take myself off of the screen and just play this through for you guys. Let's watch.
I still hear your voice on the midnight breeze, like a whisper carried through the autumn trees. Sebastian Wayne Drake, my pride, my boy, my firstborn child, my heart, my joy.
It's been 8 long months since you've been gone, and I'm still out here holding on.
I bow my head and I pray each night, Lord, bring him home, show me a light. Oh Lord, if you're listening, please guide him to me. Wherever he's lost, set his soul free.
I'll wait by the porch, 'neath the moon and the pine, till the day I see his hand in mine.
Even in heartache, my love will remain forever and always, through joy and pain.
The seasons change, but my heart stands still. This house is quiet, but I love him still. I look down the road and call out his name. God help me hold on through this lonesome pain.
If you can hear me, I need your grace. Help me find my boy, show me the way. I'll carry this love through the wind and rain.
Lord, help me believe
We'll meet again. Oh Lord, if you're listening, please guide him to me. Wherever he's lost, set his soul free.
I'll wait by the porch, 'neath the moon and the pine, till the day I see his hand in mine.
Even in heartache, my love will remain forever and always, through joy and pain. If the stars could carry my words tonight,
They tell him I love him him and hold on tight.
Sebastian Wayne Drake, my sweet little son, I'll search till I find you. Our journey's not done. Oh Lord, if you're listening, please guide him to me. Wherever he's lost, set his soul free.
I'll wait by the porch, 'neath the moon and the pine, till the day I see his hand in mine.
Even in heartache, my love will remain forever and always through joy and pain.
Okay, guys, so that was such a beautiful song that Seth had written for Sebastian. And, I have to say it's one of my favorite ones out there. I've heard so many beautiful ones that people have made for Sebastian, but just from his father's heart, um, to our ears, right? In our hearts, because Sebastian is in our hearts and we want him to be found. Tonight is going to be a part 5 of a lawsuit that has been filed against DCS in Tennessee and some other folks, including 1 to 15 John and Jane Does. So we're going to get into that. If you haven't had a chance to go back and watch, I know they're quite long, but it'll have all of the information that we've gone over thus far. They're all the same thumbnails. I just have to fix up the titles a little bit and make a playlist. So, because I want you guys to have it in case you want to share it out, like the playlist, or in case you want to go back and reference. But we're going to pick this apart and be talking about it for a little while, though. Because I think it does deserve attention, and I think that the details matter, especially because many of us have been here from the beginning, and we know that Chris and Katie have made gobs and gobs of statements that have not been consistent. And despite DCS closing Sebastian's cases that were opened, in saying, that everything was hunky dory, there were inconsistent statements that were not followed up on, and we won't do that here. We don't operate off of one assumption or another here because we don't know what happened to Sebastian, and the truth is that there is not a lot of evidence that has been released at all, but we're finding out that evidence was probably not properly gathered, and we've all talked about that as well, because we all suspected it. We just didn't know to the degree that we're talking here, right? So welcome in, everyone, and thank you so much for the green hearts. Just the conversation before, I was actually in here, able to chat before the show, so we were chatting it up in here, and it's so good to see all of our friends, and just have a little chat before the show. Also, we want to go into Sebastian's Law, but I want to make it a dedicated time in video because, again, I think it's really important. We talked about Sebastian's Law and Jen, Astrology from Mystics with Jen's panel, and just got kind of some of the details, and we talked a little bit about some of them here. But I'd like to just go over it, completely. And this is a great PowerPoint that Seth has put together. So I very much enjoy having this. That way, it's something that we can read through and discuss. Um, we know for a fact now, Babs, and that's the biggest takeaway from this series, in my opinion, of us going over these filings, is that everybody knew, and now we know for a fact everyone knew, yes, about Sebastian's situation, what he was feeling and living in. And they did a very good job of gaslighting us, in my opinion, right? Like, I know a lot of us are super strong minded individuals, and like Babs, for example, I know you are, definitely. And when something isn't right, you have your spidey senses going, right? And it's something that you're not willing to compromise any further, right? Some people don't have that. They might feel it, but they ignore it, or they don't, maybe they just don't feel it at all and they didn't see it coming. But in this case, if we listen to Chris and Katie and their statements, and if we look at their body language, and if we know the patterns in true crime that we can kind of just identify, and that doesn't mean we went to school or anything like that. We're just regular people, right? But we're able to identify that there's just something eerily similar about all of these mothers that report their children missing when they're really not missing. And from the beginning, we've kind of noticed that about Katie, right? You try to give her the benefit of the doubt and say, well, boy, she really did look kind of, upset in the interview where she's rocking back and forth with Pollyanna Thompson. But there were some parts in that video, excuse me, that interview, where Katie just looked at the camera with such a hatred, like where she was like, stop talking about it. Like she hated being there. And knowing what we know now, I want to compare some of those statements to what we're reading, specifically with the DCS stuff, because Chris and Katie weren't in the first filing, although I kept mentioning them, and I was sure to mention them because it is pertaining to their household. And they were all aware. Don't tell me that Sumner County, as small as it is, didn't know who Sebastian was already. We can't forget that Sebastian was at Christmas for Kids. That's one of the, selected charities that benefits from Pigfest. So he was absolutely involved in the community in those types of events through Chris and Katie. Now, when he would go to his father Seth's house, he was involved in community events there, and new people in the neighborhood and things like that, right? They like to do the D&D. Seth talks about going to the store with Sebastian, and things like that, right? So he was well known, but in the beginning, Chris and Katie were pretending like he wasn't, and saying he wants friends. I remember that. Like, that was a really, like, fake moment of crying that I could pick up on Katie, is on Duchess for the Missing, the first interview they did. And she was like, he wants friends, and I mean, I can do that too. I just did it, and I'm not crying. I'm not crying anymore. I cried for the song that Seth put out there because it's beautiful, and that's for his son. I cried for Sebastian, and just invite people to just cry for him too. He never deserved any of that. He deserves so much better and more, but never deserved that treatment. Hey, Jilly, good to see you. So that's right. Exactly. You arrive exactly when you mean to. She's like a wizard over there, Jilly is. And we're just getting started. But yeah, please listen to that song. I did link, I will link it again in the description, or excuse me, in the comments. Hello, chat, for you guys to go over there and check out Seth's video, because I think it's a very good one. Now, I do want to say too that I think that Smiley did a wonderful job today. Definitely go watch Smiley. I shared her live out today. I'm very interested to know what Smiley thinks about all of this because Smiley was one of the creators who spoke with Chris and Katie Proudfoot in the beginning. And she also had Josh from the lab on her panel, and he was asking specifically about the DCS records, wasn't he? He was him. He and Proudfoot were having a back and forth, and Chris Proudfoot was saying, where's these hard questions? Give me these hard questions, and he's being, in my opinion, nasty, right? Like he didn't have to be that way. And the reason why he was that way is because there was an open DCS case. Like some people, well, there was multiple, but some people might be like, yeah, we were having these issues and this happened, and they might be explanatory about it. But he was absolutely defensive and mad about it right off the bat. He was just mad that we were even asking about it, that anybody knew about it, right? Because he kind of had to come out early on because people online are very good at sleuthing and digging into information when they want the information. They know how to get the information that's public. And so that's what they did. They just went and looked him up. And I want to say some of the first people to grab that information in was like JLR, and he had that info. We also had a lot of YouTubers. Hey, Piano Girl. In my opinion, KP and CP never really thought the truth on CPS cases would come out. I think that's true too, Piano Girl, because it's so secretive. But we had a lot of YouTubers, Hey Justice for Noog, that was coming out and, going out to Tennessee to verify information. Yes, and Josh from the lab. We love Josh from the lab. Um, so she did an excellent interview, Babs, and I think it was the most important one because there was a lot of omissions of guilt. Admission, they omitted a lot of stuff. Admissions of guilt, right? They admitted that they were guilty of, I mean, being abusive to Sebastian, so far as to tell us about him throwing away the clothes, him telling us that, you know, and they made fun of Sebastian too, but him telling us about the belt, which they tell us all that Sebastian likes to jumble up stories and mix stories with one another, and the only people I've ever heard do that are them. Sebastian didn't do that, not even in the paperwork. We don't see him mixing up stories. He told exactly the story on the porch, and Proudfoot come out and say the same story. So, how is Sebastian mixing anything up? No, Proudfoot. What you mixed up is when you started telling Smiley the story. You talked about both of the CPS reports combined. You know, me too, Gail. Gail says the interview that CP and KP did with Smiley set my spidey senses into overdrive. Some people thought that that was the first interview because that one was so explosive, right? Because Chris Proudfoot wasn't in his element, and he didn't have a bunch of yes people and turd polishers around him, right? I'm sorry, Pollyanna Thompson is called that for a reason. She's a turd polisher. Duchess for the Missing, we know, is a turd polisher. Okay, I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just saying that she's done it for them, and we watched her do it. And so when they got on Smiley's panel, she wasn't rude to them or hateful or anything. She was just asking questions in order to find out more information. And at that point, the CPS and stuff was already in question. That was already becoming very public knowledge. I mean, I didn't even know who to follow. I just would type in Sebastian's name into the search bar, and then I would go watch these live streams, right? I was still very new to all of this myself. But I do want to play this from Betty. She's been putting out some premieres, and I wanted to show this one, and it's the same clip I showed in the beginning. I'll rewind it back though for us, and so you can see what Seth has said about Sebastian fearing his stepfoot, Chris Proudfoot.
I mean, my son got bit in the face by a dog, and he had to have 7 stitches in his face. And he still isn't scared of dogs. I mean, he's not scared of anything, except for, I guess, his stepfather.
Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers disappeared on February 25th, 2024, and has not been seen or heard from since. His mother reported him missing around 6 a.m. Oh, nope. 6:33 a.m. in the morning, a delayed call. She went to wake him up at 6 a.m. and he was not there. And 33 minutes later, and after she called Seth Rogers and texted Seth Rogers at work, did they finally make the call to law enforcement to report Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers missing. From the East Coast to the West Coast, we are everywhere true crime is. We are asking for the public's help. We are searching in the woods. We are doing what it takes here on the Bullhorn Betty channels to find answers to the most alarming cases we have been watching on the news.
Okay, really quick, I just want to say Betty has, done a lot of coverage, a lot of different places. So I am going to play her intro because I just, am amazed by that too. So, hello guys, welcome in, and thank you for the stickers. Thank you, Holly. Holly, you're so right. America's Most Wanted. They took out the whole end of the lights video. Like, what? I still don't understand what that is about. I'd love to know what's going on here with that, because that is just the weirdest thing. And hello, Ann Brock. Smiley can ask a question and don't even know where she's going with it, and kind of like Judge Judy. I love Smiley. Yes, and she just is herself, so she's genuine, and she's genuinely asking. In my opinion, that's how I took it too. And but there was some back and forth that was going on prior to that, and then Chris Proudfoot was like, "Oh, get over here on this panel," which I was amazed by, because I was like, "Wow, that's a lot of action going on." Again, I'm so new to everything; I didn't know who anybody was, or who worked with who didn't like who, or anything like that. I'm brand new, really, into all of it with Sebastian's case. And I found out that I've met some of my most favorite people and creators, but then I've also dealt with people that are just not so nice either. But yeah, she just really did a great job of getting them to come out of their shell, right, and build up some rapport, but also keep it professional. Because there were times where Chris would try to not answer the question, and Smiley would bring him back nicely, right? And be like, "Yeah, but what about," and she'd ask him again, and to me, that is really good, because we don't see that kind of follow-up. Plus, the mainstream media, they don't have that time to dedicate like we do. Some of these panels are long and that sort of thing. So, hey, Sharon Marlowe. So, it does happen. Like that, where you don't get that follow-up, or it's so shocking that the interviewer is probably like, "What?" Because I know the Caitlin Miller interview, where they only show their hands, you can tell what Caitlin is thinking by looking at her face, right? Because it's just as awkward, but their answers were equally awkward and made for an interview that I think she was probably thinking to herself, "What the heck is happening here?" So yeah, absolutely, Poppy Love. And thank you guys all for being here. I really appreciate all the support, and I appreciate you guys watching. It's a lot. It is a lot, Sebastian is just a little sweetie pie, and I just want him to be found, and I just really want him to come home to his dad. And another thing that I think that was very good on Smiley's live was that she's talking about how Sebastian loves everybody, and that's what is one of the most heartbreaking things, and it is for me too. Uh, so heartbreaking to know because kids are loving. They're I mean, not every kid is going to be like the next. We'll just say that everybody deals with things differently, but when you're dealing with a situation like Sebastian was that we're learning more and more about, unfortunately, and this is not alleged. I mean, this is based on a CPS report, DCS report, where Sebastian was being interviewed, his mother Katie was being interviewed, right? That we're reading over. So it's in and it's it's not alleged. It's not alleged. Now some of the things in the filing are being alleged, but they are taking excerpts from the reports themselves, and putting them into the filing. Hey Shadow, peer character doing a classic mic drop. Aw, thank you. I love how it at least tells me what it is. That's so awesome. Aw, thanks, Babs. um, but it's just really amazing. And I guess I'm not surprised, I'm concerned more than anything, because I feel like Katie has been you know, always quick to stick up for Chris. And even Smiley said today, she said, now I'm clapping because she was doing every time you make a point clap, right? I can't do it unless I'm mad and I'm making a point, but you guys know what I'm talking about. Chris was doing that on Smiley's panel, and then Katie was like, he's not clapping, y'all. And then, Smiley said, what'd you say? And she's like, he's not clapping. And then Chris said, oh, yeah, they're all clapping for me. His coworkers, they're the ones clapping for me because they think what he's saying is so great, right? Like if I make a good comment or you guys make one and oh, good job, good comment. No, but he was sitting there clapping to make a point. Katie takes it upon herself because apparently people in the chat were saying, why is he clapping? Or he's angry, he's clapping, whatever they were saying at the time. And Katie ran to the rescue of her very vile husband, in my opinion. And thank you, Witchy Mama, so much for that too. That's so sweet of you. Thank you for dropping that. I also wanted to drop some of Seth's links too, and I have them up here, and I did in the beginning of the show, too, just in case you guys wanted to help out. I feel like it's the least we can do when, we're talking about Sebastian. Seth behind the scenes does so much. And he has been doing so much. And then it's always amazing to me how much he's doing because you're like, well, he's kind of quiet over there. No, I'm just kidding. But then he comes out with these grand things that he's been working on. One was the song for Sebastian that he wrote. The other one is Sebastian's Law, right? These filings. He's been working with the lawyers. He's been compiling evidence. He's been, getting it all together. And for him to have been sitting on all of this knowledge, it had to have been a very heavy load to bear because he couldn't say anything until this was released, and he still can't really say anything because it's open litigation. So it's just it's tough, but he's done a great job through everything. So I want to go back to talking about Chris's alibi really quick. And I just felt like showing this because these are some things that are named. But I also wanted to bring in these couple excerpts that Betty plays in her show.
I can tell you personally that I have traveled this entire country seeking these answers and bringing that content right here to you here on the Bullhorn Betty channels and Bullhorn Betty Crime Stories. We are happy with the work that we've done. We brought many answers to the public, and we have defied mainstream media in our pursuit of the truth in these cases. We will continue to work, we will continue to fight for these victims, and we will continue to tell their stories here on my channels. Welcome to the Bullhorn Betty brand of channels and the Coffee Club. Thank you for your love, thank you for your support, and more importantly, thank you for allowing me to bring these victims' stories to each and every one of you, advocating for each of these victims. God bless you. God bless America, and more importantly, God bless our victims.
Imagine being able to build an app with your name.
Okay, and also that was Chronicles of Olivia. That was with Betty, and she also did some wonderful interviewing with the Proud Feets. Now, didn't she? She did another really good interview where she just ask them questions, right? Walk me through that day. Walk me through when you found out Sebastian was missing, right? And there were a couple of really big inconsistencies in there, and also where they changed, like adding to the story. And then we find out that that was a lie too, because when we think about Katie telling us about them going to the bowling alley, right? But she doesn't say that they didn't bowl. So, hey, Paige. Paige says Katie will never be over and go away like you all wanted us. Yeah, this will never be be over. Excuse me. This will never be over and go away like you have all wanted by telling everyone to shut up. Yeah, they never wanted us to talk, right, Paige? They just wanted us to be quiet, move on to the next story, right? And we just can't do it because Sebastian deserves better than that.
There's a rumor out
Okay, so I thought it started. Okay, no, it did.
there, Chris,
That
that your mom and your dad have Sebastian. It's been brought up to me.
Seth, you know darn good and well you got a question about my
I'm just
mother.
asking.
You pick up the
Did they
phone.
take me
and
somewhere
you
to
call.
like a boot camp or anything like that? And Katie just thought I wouldn't accept it.
I don't.
All right. So, and now Chloe should have hushed her mouth, right? On this, in my opinion, right? Because Seth is just coming up here and he's saying, about Chris's mom. Now, Chris's mom was alleged to have been at Worsham's, right? But he's also asking, did you guys just take Sebastian and hide him from me? And you didn't think it was going to get this big, right? Because we all know about Chris and his statements. Again, also on Smiley. Oh, this is a case that's going to be studied. And this is, I mean, he said several things to that effect. So, and again, so, and then also with the Sebastian will be back when he's 18 kind of thing. So Seth is asking him, hey, and then in comes Chloe and she's like, oh, no, they should have just let them talk.
I don't think
Hold
Seth
on.
is being accusatory. I think he's just trying to clear up a bunch of BS that's been online.
Right, and I'm trying, and I'm telling you, if he's had this suspicion, he's got my mother's phone number. He can pick up the phone and call her. She is not afraid to
No,
answer any
Chris, I'm not
questions.
saying you. I don't want to talk to your mom. I want to talk to you, and I want to talk to Katie.
Well, it's real simple,
Just
Seth.
asking to put it to the rest.
you have seen the video footage of Seth on Sunday. Don't tell me you hadn't. I know you have. You sat in the room with all the agents.
No, they didn't show me the video footage, buddy.
So you didn't see, you weren't sitting in a room with law enforcement, the district attorney, when they showed you a video, when you wanted proof of life, saying that you hadn't seen proof since Friday. When you've been at my house the first 3 damn days.
Sunday, buddy.
Chris.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Does that shock you guys still? Because when I hear that, I cringe and I'm like, what in the hell? Absolutely gross. Why that behavior? Why do you have to act like such a jerk? If I was asked about, do you have my son, and I'm a step parent, there's no reason to become irate like this. Seth comes on the panel and he's completely calm and he's like, hey, Chris, can you tell me about this? Hey, what about this? Right? And here's Chris and he's just blowing up on Seth. I just don't understand all the animosity, Jilly. I don't understand why there's this much. And it's always been like this. And he's talking about the proof of life from the Texas Roadhouse. Well, I remember Seth being on the different panels in the beginning and people were asking if he had been able to ever see proof of life because we were all wondering that. When this is always what we wonder about. And I just did it in Javea Harris's case. And I said to myself, when was the last time anybody saw this child besides her parents? I hate that because most parents love their children. But we're seeing a lot of parents that are calling their children and missing and they know where they're at. You know? So, hey, Seth, the video footage at the Texas Roadhouse, and he said, my name instead of Sebastian's. Yes, he did. I was just thinking that. Thank you. I was like, he did. Sorry, I just thought back and I was like, wait a minute. So I did not see Sebastian at their house. Right. And you saw like the Texas Roadhouse footage in terms of like what, here we go. There we go. Sorry, I didn't realize I was still full screen. You're talking about seeing him leaving the Texas Roadhouse and getting into the vehicle. Because that's what I remember you saying that you saw anyway. So correct me if I'm wrong. But, you know. So. But yeah, he gets so irate. And I don't know if he was always like that to deal with. Right? Or if he was just acting like this off. Right? Because if he was. But. And then again, we kind of have known Chris Proudfoot in the way that he can be and the way that he gets, you know. But back when I was watching this, back then, I was thinking things like that also. Like, why is he so irate every single time? Because, guys, there's more. There's more of this rage.
Let Seth speak. Go ahead, Seth.
Chris, they showed me video proof of him coming out of Texas Roadhouse on Sunday.
On a Sunday night. You damn right.
Just, Chris.
Seth, I got a problem with you sitting here making these accusations. Because if you got a problem with them, guess what?
Let's watch it.
I think we're just trying to talk things out, and I don't even know if this should be public, honestly.
Same.
Okay, here's all the public knowledge you need on this deal. Law enforcement has talked to my parents, my whole family, Once again, this statement is true, what law enforcement says. Just because you hear a rumor doesn't make it true.
Chris,
I don't think he said it was true. I think he's just trying to clarify.
He said,
That's
Well, and here's another thing about rumors, because a lot of these things that we're hearing to be true were rumored, right, guys? We got to remember that this Michaela Cleveland lady took the documents and they ended up, if she even sent them to one person can send them to many people, okay? So I don't know how many people she sent them to, but if she even sent them to one person, depending on who that person is, that can open it up to a whole lot of people, okay? And that's where a rumor becomes true, right? Or a rumor already is true, but people are spreading that shit around, but it's true, right? So you have to understand that as well. That, people knew about some of this stuff, and that's why the rumors were flying.
It's not clarifying. No, stop sitting here trying to defend his actions.
One thing you will notice is the constant comments, the condescending comments Chris Proudfoot constantly is making here. Now remember, this is Sebastian disappearing under their watch, not Seth. And Seth is just a very concerned father that hasn't seen his son and just wants those with answers to give those to him. Yet instead of getting the answers he's asking, he is met with condescending remarks, intimidating remarks in some instances, and all he's trying to do is find his son.
Stop.
Okay.
The fact is, Chris, is I'm trying to squash the rumor. We're both here. Squashing the rumor.
Seth, there is no rumor. You know my parents were not with Katie on Sunday.
That's all I'm doing, Chris.
No, you're causing a problem because you know damn good and well where my parents were at their house on Sunday night. They weren't near Katie. They weren't near Sebastian. And if
Okay. And then again, who is raging on the panel? No one else is raging. Everybody else is calm. Like, even meeting his crazy. No one has met Chris Proudfoot's crazy. He is absolutely just sitting there raging like the little baby bitch that he is, in my opinion.
Chris.
No, you're causing a problem because you know damn good and well where my parents were at their house on Sunday night. They weren't near Katie. They weren't near Sebastian. And if you got a problem, all you got to do is pick up the phone and call her. Be an adult. Be a responsible adult. And just call her.
Wow. You got to call my mommy, okay? And if you don't call my mommy, then you're not a responsible adult. F talking to your mommy. I don't want to talk to your mommy about anything if I'm Seth, in my opinion. I'm not trying to talk to your mom, Chris. Why would I want to talk to your mom? Why hasn't your mom come up on the news or anything trying to find her grandson? Oh, wait, because her name's Cruella DeVille. That's why. And she acts like Cruella DeVille. She lives up to that nickname because she's mean as hell. She hasn't come out and looked for Sebastian, not once. None of you guys have ever showed up at a vigil. So why would he ever want to talk to any of you guys at all, except for to find out where Sebastian is? Why don't you tell us where your mommy was? And why don't you tell us why your mommy had to go and get your fifth wheel with you? And old Colossal Popcorn Tooth. How come they were there?
Can you hear me, Chris?
Oh, I can hear you.
And also, Chris, can you verify when you went and got your camper? Because we still haven't verified that or your alibi.
Because all I'm hearing is anger and attitude from you. What I'm trying
And you should, Seth. You should. Because what you're doing is bullshit and you know it.
Oh, and here's Seth being like, please, Chris, I'm gonna need you to Chris. No, Seth. This is why we call him Chrissy Pissy Baby Pants with a pencil. Suck a pencil. right? Because he's absolutely acting like, a colossal prick on the panel. And Seth is just asking him to clarify and squash some rumors, but that's going to be hard because of Chris's immaturity. Thank you, Holly. Little child, little baby, and a narcissist, in my opinion.
Are you putting up flyers? That's what they're
Yes,
asking.
we are.
Okay.
Yes, and here's why they're.
Here we go. Here we go to, about the flyers. Let's listen about the flyers because we got a star-studded cast up here on the panel.
Asking that question. No, you're not going to find pictures of us out there doing this because it's real simple. We, all three parents, initially were told in the beginning not to go out and search, that we needed to be available to talk to law enforcement.
Right.
Yeah.
Seth has been out there searching and doing his thing. He's had a bunch of people following him. Whether or not he chose that or these people decided to do it on their own accord, that's not for me to say. But we, Katie and I, are not going to have some big, massive search party following us around with a bunch of people that are already threatened death threats, by the way, to us. I'm not doing that.
Supposedly on the night that Sebastian disappeared, there was only 2 Wi-Fis that...
Oh, God. Okay, guys, now just brace yourself because we're going to have some people who, in my opinion, have trouble speaking English, okay? And they're hard to understand. Seth says not her on Sunday night, but it was reported 5:45 a.m. Monday in the sighting of her at Warsham's. Yes. Yes, sir. Yeah. And it was kind of like different people that didn't know each other type of a thing. Like people were coming forward and saying, hey, I saw Kathy Bowersox over at the Warsham's, and like it's very busy right on a Monday because everybody's starting work, school, right? Everybody's coming back off the weekend. So, yeah. I mean, I've always kept that little nugget with me because we do know also that Chris's sister Melissa let it slip that they were all out quote searching since 6:30 a.m. But Katie didn't even make the phone call. Well, Chris didn't make the phone call yet to law enforcement. So, yeah. Well, narcissists scare normal people because normal people don't just fly off the handle like that. I mean, you might have somebody yell and get upset. I mean, everybody's normal response is, anger, sadness. I mean, we have emotions, right? But he just goes and flies off the handle, and that's that narcissistic rage, right? Because normal people, you can hear probably some annoying, tone in their voice or something like that, but you don't ever quite get to see somebody in such fashion. And this is again the tip of the iceberg for him. That was, I think, back in April of 24. But here we go.
I'm not doing that.
Supposedly on the night that Sebastian disappeared, there was only 2 Wi-Fis that came in that area and left that area.
The response of these stupid motherfuckers don't even know it was my truck.
Supposedly on the night that Sebastian disappeared, they go through and they check like all the Wi-Fi in the area, and there was only 2 Wi-Fis that came in that area and left that area. Like 2 open networks, 2 traveling Wi-Fis came in and left.
And if he said my Wi-Fi, my truck, whatever to you or whoever, I don't know, but I would imagine it would be when he was arriving from the work site, right? I mean, that's what I would think. I thought you guys were talking about during the missing time frame, like let's say 10 p.m. to 6 a.m.
That's what I thought too.
That makes
why, and this is the thing too, that body moving, she's got, a spreadsheet with all kinds of information about Sebastian on it. Why does she think the missing time frame is 10 o'clock? Is it because of the snap, crackle, pop, the bang, right? What is it? What is it? Because, the thud or the noise, because she said all of them. What is it? But I think that's curious to me, because if I was to pick a missing time frame, it would be from midnight to 6:30 in the morning. And that's because, and that's assuming Sebastian made it home. But that's because Chris and Katie kept on saying that to everybody. Chris told Nina from 12 to midnight, from midnight to 6, he said. You know what I'm saying? So we've heard them say it several times. But I find it interesting that Miss Know-It-All, who thinks that the Proudfoot should stalk me when I come to the area, and yes, I still have the screenshot of that, would be saying that the missing time is 10, and then Clue agrees with that.
That changes everything.
No,
that
no,
was probably just him coming home.
Yeah, that's why I made the point to say there is no time. Right, like I don't know. If
that was the time frame, then the police would definitely have more suspicion, you would think, right?
Yeah, because we got a problem living here if they didn't act on that. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, we know what you mean, and you sure do have a problem. That is a major problem. Duh. You know more than most people about the Proudfoots and their involvement. I think law enforcement needs to talk to everybody on this panel, and I've said it before.
Fair is fair, right? If we're going to bring something, you got to put it all out there. You can't just put half of it. Fair is fair. It was the 25th, 26th, under my understanding, so it could have been the entire day, right? That's just what it is, but it still makes it odd, right? It also tells me, and not odd, I'll take that back. It adds a little bit to it, but it also tells me that law enforcement checked that area for any signal.
There are no crane operators here at 5:15 in the morning. So hey guys, Bullhorn Betty here. I am in front of the St. Jude's property, the construction. As you see, the cranes are lit up behind me here. I was out here at 5:15 this morning. There are a few things that I did find out about this. Is there are no crane operators here at 5:15 in the morning. There are people here. There are people that are working inside of the building, like the electricians, the plumbing, the people that are down here on the first level where the lights are right there. Those lights right there are where the people that are working. But as you see, none of the cranes are in operation at this time of the morning. None of the cranes whatsoever. I'm here. I'm looking at the time. People are starting to show up here. They're starting to line the road. They're going into the building, but they're parking out here in the road. It's got to be 5:30 in the morning. You see how bright it is out here at 5:30 in the morning. It is awfully bright, and there's lights. But this is what we're dealing with right here. Are there people in there? Yes, they are. Are the towers working and in operation? No, they're not. I don't know when that will happen. I'm kind of sitting here waiting right now to find out, when we start seeing some movement here, when we start seeing employees here. I can tell you at 5:15, there were very, very limited employees here at 5:15.
Okay, guys, so Bullhorn Betty went there, okay? People can say whatever they would like about any of us creators, but she went there, and she's showing us, and we're seeing it with our own two eyes, which I appreciate the hell out of her for that. Hey, Lori, Betty traveling all the way over there, right? And she's got a lot of these really good premieres, because I know I shared another one of these. And this is what I was talking about when she was on panel on Seth's with me and Jen and Smiley. Right. So I was like, hey, Betty, what about when you went there? Because, I think people have to remember that there was other YouTubers that were going out there. Same things with Silver's on the Scene. He allegedly went to all of these places, right? And talked to. But, we're seeing this with our own two eyes, that Betty's like, hey, it's 5:15. In the morning, and these are who's all working out here. Nobody else is working, and we're able to see it.
There are very, very, very limited employees here right now.
Yeah.
Oh, here's the first interview. Yeah, Katie. Lord have mercy, because I really can't. It's like nails on a chalkboard to hear her do this. But let's watch.
Sunday morning, I'll just start at the morning. Sunday morning, we got up and I made a fun breakfast for us, spaghetti pancakes.
My apologies. This is the March 17th interview with Duchess. My apologies.
Google it, y'all.
Just Google it. I should have Googled it. Y'all. Okay, so let me just start it over, because, yes, I got the date wrong. It was March 17th.
There are very, very, very limited employees here right now.
Yeah, Sunday morning, I'll just start at the morning. Sunday morning, we got up and I made a fun breakfast for us, spaghetti pancakes. Google it, y'all. We FaceTime family while we were eating so he could brag, because that's something he likes to do. And we were laughing and joking on FaceTime and having a good time with that. After breakfast, we got a call to go pick up our niece and go take her to meet up. So we did that. We went and picked her up, and we met her mom at BJ's, and we were there with family members. We come home and put our groceries away, and then a little bit later we went to the bowling alley, a local bowling alley here, and we played games. And then and this is just Bubba and I, and we went to dinner, just the two of us, and then come home. He took the trash out because that's his chore, and he come in and he was playing in his room until bedtime. And at bedtime, I told him, I said, "Hey, Bubba, it's time to go to bed." And he goes, "Okay, good night, Mama, I love you." And then he said goodnight to his puppies, and he went to bed.
All right, guys. Now, this is the story that we've been most used to hearing from Katie, right? She doesn't talk about a thud or anything like that. She doesn't talk about a noise. She certainly doesn't say that there was a bang, right? Because that one was like the most escalated, right? Because first they were saying on Smiley it was a noise, but then when asked specifically by Nancy Grace, she says just a thud. And then, it's described as a bang when Brandon Carter talks about it in the FBI press release. Lovergirl says even if he was there at 5:15, that's weird. And why hasn't Big Mouth Chris, quote, cleared, unquote, it all up for us? But he routinely gets there at 5:15. Right. And, all the PI had to do, that's Heather, is get the footage, right, or the logs for Chris Proudfoot, and she was told in the beginning of that horrid conversation that she could do that at any time, that they didn't get rid of any of that, or anything like that. So I'm just curious why she continued to bullshit with that guy, because that guy was a bullshitter. And if he would have told me that, I would have said, okay, where do I get the footage, right? Sometimes you have to keep those kinds of people, in line, and, especially somebody like that. And again, I wouldn't allow for him to talk to me like that. I would have asked to speak with his supervisor had he been talking to me like that. But again, we don't even know where she got the phone number for that guy, because he was talking about Thomas, the F boy, and Thomas was on Facebook. It's just, it's a real shit show. No, yeah, Poppy. No, this is the way she talks when she's on Duchess or when she's trying to fool Nashville News. But Katie has changed her accent on the 1 year anniversary. She wasn't talking like that. But then again, she did that huge slip up too. Hey, couponing. Yep, a thud, then a bang, Janet. You know? And she tried to blame it on Sebastian, too, that he was making noise in his room. Right? And you can imagine why, when she was asked why she didn't check on Sebastian, she said, well, you can imagine why a mother wouldn't check on her son, her 15-year-old son, making it seem like Sebastian was, doing self-exploration. Poor Sebastian, poor guy. I just feel so bad for him. Doesn't deserve any of this crap. His mother, Katie, is a complete nut bar, in my opinion. Catherine says now they played games. I thought they found out the lanes were left and why. Well, they said that for a little while, didn't they? They said they played games because they couldn't bowl. But then come to find out they only stayed there for like 10 minutes, allegedly. Just long enough to find out that they couldn't bowl. But they didn't play any games. But here's Katie, we went to the bowling alley because games, But then when there's games at the Texas Roadhouse that they could have played games at the table, she didn't let him play any games. She even let him have his phone. He didn't even have his phone. So she never tells him she loves him back. Exactly, Babs. Because she didn't. I think all of it's a lie. I think all of the stuff that she's talking about, putting him to bed, all that kind of stuff, lie. Yeah. It's just ridiculous. It's so ridiculous.
Okay. And walk me through what happened. You said that you were on a phone call, you were on the couch, and then you went to bed at midnight. Walk me through exactly what transpired during that time before you went to bed at midnight for you.
So, well, my husband, he works out of town a lot. So, we normally sit and talk every evening, and I normally fall asleep on him. And he'll tell me, wake up, or, you gotta go to bed. And and that was right around midnight. So I got up and I put the puppies up and I went to bed myself at midnight. And, I went to sleep, obviously. And then at 6 a.m., I went to wake him up for school, and that's when I couldn't find him. And sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. Take your time. Take your time. Tell me, did Sebastian take any type of medication before he went to bed, or that would make him sleepy, or if he did take medication, it was just in the morning, or did he take medication at night before he went to bed?
He did take medication nightly and daily.
Okay.
Just for HIPAA reasons, we will not disclose.
I understand.
What the medication is.
Oh my God, Chris, with the HIPAA drives me nuts. Just drives me nuts to this day.
I was just trying to think, if there was something that might have made him sleepy, like if he would have woken up, all these different questions that people have asked me. So, right. But you don't have to disclose any particular, nobody needs to know that, specifically. I just wanted to ask. Do you feel any particular way? Do you have any thoughts about Sebastian's disappearance? Do you feel that he may have walked off? I've seen a lot of people in chat saying that he went out the window versus he went out the door. How did the door get locked? That you found the door locked. Can you walk me through exactly?
Yeah. Did you hear Katie? Yeah. What, Katie? What? Look out, girl. I got my earbuds in. Yeah. There's questions. People have questions, right? Because your story doesn't match up, Katie, even to regular people. The only reason you got away with any of this is because law enforcement helped you cover it up.
Exactly what that looks like and what you found. Was the door locked? What do you think may have occurred for him walking off versus
Well, I'll tell you
that he's
this.
with someone? Okay.
We didn't find any signs of the windows, but and without disclosing the details of my door locks, I will
I
say that
understand.
Sebastian regularly and consistently went out and locked the door behind himself.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, guys, so this is March 17th, and Katie is saying that Sebastian regularly went out the front door and locked it behind himself. So that's where he would have walked out the front door. And she's pushing that narrative. And she continues to push that narrative until Nancy Grace asks her, "What is your theory?" Katie says, "I really don't know where he is." No, she says, your theory, right? This is Nancy Grace over there grilling a little bit, right? And she says, "Well, I just think that he would have been found by now with where they searched." Yes, and HIPAA has two A's, folks. Thank you, Babs. Just so everybody knows, because I know a lot of people spell it with the two P's, and it's not. It's an acronym. All right, so, but yeah, Katie, no, ma'am. And she has done this since the beginning, right? It's always something with her story. It's always some inconsistency. But again, she never did tell anybody anything different than Sebastian walked away, ran away on his own, right? I don't know why he walked out that door. All that bit was still going until March 25th when he went on, or when they went on Nancy Grace. Was it March 25th? I think Seth was on with News Nation and Brian Ensign.
All right, let me get over here because I have some other questions that are coming in.
Boom, Cinderella.
Now, I will say this much: let them ask questions. I mean, we're not hiding anything. I've heard so much negativity that I refuse to answer questions. Let them fly. I mean, I'll be respectful on my responses. I would hope they would be respectful in their questions, but please let them fly. We're good with it.
Okay, I'm just going to Crystal Arctic. Do you?
But they already asked you questions that you didn't answer, right? When they ask you a question, you're quiet, but then you sit there and go, "Let them fly." Dude, it's nauseating, really.
You have a question that you want to ask before I take a few questions from the chat?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
We know that Sebastian was high functioning, had high functioning autism. What would you say was strengths and weaknesses that he had? Because no two kids are the same, is why I'm asking.
That is, you are nowhere far from the truth on that, because that is so correct. Sebastian is extreme.
You are nowhere far from the truth. You are nowhere far from the truth. What a dumbass. Sorry, had to point it out.
Sebastian is extremely high functioning. His weakness, he does not have a sense of personal space. They've always been working with him about like a 3-foot rule, because he likes to be right up in your face. Hey, whoa.
He deals with some social and emotional dysregulation issues. Simply put, his emotions or responses don't always appropriately match the situation.
Neither do yours, Katie. Let's be honest, Katie. Neither do yours. Okay? Neither does your husband's. We just listened to him act a fool, right? Just because he's behaving right here. No, that doesn't fly with me either, Katie. But here she is covering Chris's ass, and she does this all the time. Oh, wait, he's got emotional, social, no, wait a minute. Because, Chris is over there mocking Sebastian. Oh, he's just right there. Hey, that makes Sebastian seem off-putting. And they did that in a lot of different instances. Both of them did, where they were making us believe that Sebastian was an off-putting kind of person that was in your face, didn't have any boundaries, right? But we learned that that's them. Just like Sebastian mixes stories up. No, that's you. Sebastian tells lies. No, that's you. Fucking numbnuts, both of them.
And socially he can be somewhat awkward interacting with others because he doesn't.
So can you, Katie. So can you. So can you. I'm sorry. I can't with her lying on him like that. I understand with autism, it does come with certain obstacles. I'm not saying that, So, but for her to sit here and be like, oh, well, Sebastian acts awkward. So do you, Katie.
Always match, like, I don't know how to say it right. Like, someone will want to talk about one conversation, but if that's not the subject he's fixated on, he will just railroad over that and go right back to what he's thinking.
Well, yeah, but that's something that people do that are on the spectrum. In my opinion, I've noticed that. But in my opinion, when I look at how they've treated Sebastian, what they said in the beginning, oh, if you knew Sebastian, then you'd never want to look for him. And then here they're like, well, he's just right up in your face, and it's very, off-putting. It's weird. It's awkward. Da, da. Okay, Chris. Well, there's a lot of stuff about you that's that way. For one, I can't stand it when you start talking because God only knows what's going to come out of that big pig mouth of yours.
But at the same time, he's also, for the most part, a pretty happy kid, and he loves being a helper, and he likes animals, and he's really smart.
He can play in a game of chess.
All right. Before that idiot comes in and starts ruining it, Katie, for a split second there, sounded like a proud mom. Let's listen back.
And he loves being a helper, and he likes animals, and he's really smart.
He can play in a game of chess, and he's beat grown men in chess.
He actually likes reading occasionally, but only if it's what he wants to read. So like Minecraft books, he loves to read those. Albeit his humor is a little different. He's funny. I prefer he's silly more than anything.
How is he with strangers?
Depends on the day, to be honest with you. He goes either he's never met a stranger all the way to, depending on his mood, he don't want nothing to do with anybody. So it's kind of difficult to answer that question because it varies depending on where he is in the moment.
All right, guys. So that's a little bit about how Chris and Katie Proudfoot were talking about Sebastian and a few other little tidbits that we went over there with Betty, and Betty did a great job on that. So we have some causes to go over tonight, and I think we're going to get through this paperwork tonight. But I wanted to start the show off with just a little bit of a taste of who Chris Proudfoot is, because say somebody's coming in to Sebastian's case for the very first time. Oh, look, this lady Freedom does true crime. She's talking about Sebastian's case, right? And they come in. I want them to see who we're talking about. That was Chris and Katie Proudfoot. They're Sebastian's mother and stepfoot father, right? I call him stepfoot here because I don't think he was much of a stepfather to Sebastian at all. I mean, it's all of us, Holly. If we have something that happens and it makes our day, a little brighter, then we're probably going to have a better day than we would if something bad happened, right? Like, say we wake up, there's been times where I just woke up on the wrong side of the broom, as my friend would say. That's my friend Billy. He'll say, somebody woke up on the wrong side of the broom today, right? And to me, that's funny. Sometimes you just do. Like, sometimes you're just like, maybe something happened the day before and you're still upset about it. And, as we were reading last night, poor Sebastian was kind of having a bad time of it, um, in some ways, right? Because of what he went through before. And those of us who have gone through traumatic situations, right? And many of us have. If you live long enough, I believe there's probably going to be some things that happen. Um, but some of the trauma sticks with you. You know what I mean? Um, like, one of my friends one time got into a car wreck, and after her car wreck, she was really afraid to drive, right? Like, she was having PTSD, right? And that's what the doctors told her. And she was worried that it would be a long-term thing. And I told her, you may always be a little bit hesitant to drive, right? Because of the wreck that you were in, but I mean, it'll pass. I think this too shall pass, right? And I think that you're probably going to feel that effect for a little while. But when it comes to a complex PTSD or a full on diagnosis of PTSD, it depends on the trauma, and it depends on the prolonged trauma, and it depends on if there's layered trauma. For Sebastian, I would venture to think that he had some complex PTSD symptoms going on. I'm surprised that that was not listed in his medical history. And the reason I say that is because the initial DCS call in was for SA, but it was because Sebastian was reporting SA that happened to him in California, right? And that it was still weighing heavy on his little heart, on his mind, on his soul. It was weighing heavy because he was scared that Proudfoot was going to find out that he had told his mama, and that was about the only person that he wanted to tell. There's people too, and I understand that Seth also knew about this, but um, that is the essay in California. But sometimes we feel comfortable talking to one person or another about it, and sometimes we don't want other people to find out about it, right? And you can imagine why, because you're dealing with somebody like Chris Proudfoot, who flies off the handle, acts like a jackass, doesn't have any empathy, doesn't have compassion for another person's situation. And so you can imagine why he might not want to talk to just anybody about it. It's a fragile situation, and it can be very shameful, where the person is blaming themselves, and that's what Sebastian was allegedly going through. I don't know what he was going through completely, but I can kind of understand by reading what we were reading last night. And again, this is a part 5, so but I'm going to put it into some videos too for you guys, so we can kind of break it down that way. But yeah, we all have, good and bad days. So it's just so sad for um, Sebastian, Lori. It's just so sad. Um, Babs, fried bologna is actually really good. I like it. Um, I was listening to a jail call one time, and the lady or the girl was like, we only got a single piece of bologna or something like that. It wasn't even cooked, and it made me laugh. So, um, all right. So, first cause of action here. We got 42 USC 1983, substantive due process. Okay. And it's under the 14th Amendment, deliberate interference, deliberate indifference, and state created danger. Okay. So this is against all of the defendants. And again, guys, we are on page 14 of the filing Seth Rogers, a friend to Sebastian Rogers against DCS. Let me read this right here up, just because we're doing a part 5, but I will reiterate this part. I will not go over this other part yet until we, do again, revisit it. It's just a lot. All right. So, again, this is a federal filing. They are asking for and demanding a jury trial. The defendants here would be Department of Children and Family Services at a Tennessee agency, Margie Quinn in her official capacity, Commissioner of the Tennessee Department of Children's Services, and in her individual capacity, right? Also, Leslie Keel Ritchie. Also, we have Laura Boswell and Amira Walker. They're all being sued in their professional and individual capacities, right? Because they all had a direct hand in this. Plus 1 to 15 does, and that's, John or Jane, we're not sure. They're going to be named later once they're found out. And I will also give a little bit of background really quick to Margie Quinn. She's a defendant. She's the commissioner, okay? Tennessee Department of Children and Family Services. Also, Leslie Keel Ritchie, she was a team leader at DCS. That's Mid-Cumberland Region, okay? There's 2 DCS reports that we're going to be going over. Laura Boswell was the case manager at DCS, Mid-Cumberland Region. Okay, and so there's case ID for the first case. That was the SA. That was 150954067, and they closed it under, quote, no services needed, end quote. And then also there was, I'm sorry, I read that backwards. There was the physical abuse case is 150954067. The SA case, which was the first one to arise, was 14884100703. And, again, that's the one where Sebastian was complaining of having flashbacks type symptoms, feelings of, guilt and shame and things like that because of what happened to him in California. The physical abuse was because Sebastian wasn't wearing a belt. Chris Proudfoot forced him to pull his shirt up. And when he saw that he wasn't wearing a belt, he popped him in the belly. Now, with the backhand to the belly is what Chris Proudfoot has admitted that he did. Now, that was very degrading, and that was noted in this paperwork. What was another thing? Oh, and the pull-ups. The pull-ups were also mentioned, that Sebastian was to be wearing pull-ups. Okay, and Chris Proudfoot was demanding that. We do know that Seth told us that Sebastian was to wear the pull-ups, and all of the underwear, Chris had taken them and given them to Seth. All of Sebastian's, boxer shorts, or however he wears, were given to his father because he wasn't allowed to wear them. He needed to wear the pull-up at their house. We've known that for quite some time as well. So, yes, we have the first incident in 2022. The second incident is in 2023 that we're talking about tonight. The physical abuse, 2023. All right. So I just kind of wanted to give you guys a little bit of background just so we have that. And then on March 1st, 2024, this is after Sebastian went missing. So it would have been, let's see, 26, 27, 28, 29. It was a leap year. So the fifth day of the Sebastian Rogers investigation, DCS safety assessment was initiated. That's FAST 2.0 assessment, and we went over what that is last night. But basically, they're assessing the entire family. They do a whole workup on the family and deep dive into the family, even though they had much knowledge about the family since 2022, DCS involvement, as well as Sebastian had been going to see a therapist 3 times a week. Now, this assessment through DCS was completed on March 5th of 2024. Okay, and now we're going to get into the causes. So the first cause of action, again, we have deliberate indifference and state-created danger against all the defendants I just named. Plaintiffs incorporate by reference all proceedings paragraphs as through set forth herein. Okay. Number 66, the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution provides that no state shall, quote, deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of the law, end quote. In child welfare cases, the acceptable standard for substantive due process liability under 42 USC 1983 is deliberate indifference. This is whether the state actor knew of or disregarded a substantial risk of serious harm to the plaintiff. Now, this is cited in Patel versus Kent. Okay, and this is another case that we're going to be looking into, but just not on tonight's, not tonight. It was cited in the lawsuit against Craddock and Carter and Sumner County Sheriff's Office. Sebastian Wayne Drake, number 67 is under the state-created danger doctrine. A state actor may be held liable under 1983 when the state's affirmative actions create or increase the danger to an individual, and that's in DeShaney versus Winnebago County Department of Social Services, again cited in both of these filings. Number 68, Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers, a missing child with documented disabilities and a known history of abuse, had a liberty interest in his personal security protected by the 14th Amendment. Seth Rogers has a protected liberty interest in the care, custody, and companionship of his son, Sebastian. 69. This claim is brought on behalf of Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers through his father and next friend, Seth Rogers. The state-created danger doctrine requires that the state's own affirmative conduct created or increased the plaintiff's exposure to danger. I would agree. That's also cited case law Kennedy versus Ridgefield City, 439 F 3rd 1055, and that's 9th Circuit, 2006. Defendants' affirmative acts that created or increased the danger to Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers include A. Knowing Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers' history of sexual abuse that had been reported to and investigated by the DCS. B. Knowing that Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers had a home life that DCS's own records show was marked by physical abuse, emotional degradation, and a stepfather whom neighbors reported, quote, hated the child and wanted the child to die, end quote. And letter C, failing to take any action. Number 70, defendants acting under color of law were deliberately indifferent to Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers' disappearance. This deliberate indifference is evidenced by A, investigating Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers' home on allegations of physical abuse by Proudfoot, that's Christopher Proudfoot, documenting evidence of abuse and danger, leading to a determination that Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers was at, quote, serious or imminent risk of removal, end quote, and then closing the case without protective action. Letter B is closing the investigation and thereby preventing any potential intervention or help by other entities. C, actively preventing other agencies and individuals from taking protective action by closing the case. Letter D, ignoring the child's own admissions of living in fear of his stepfather. Letter E, failing to interview Rogers to obtain information critical to assessing Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers' safety, including Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers' expressed fear of Proudfoot. Chris Proudfoot's ridicule of Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers about his prior sexual abuse, and Sebastian Rogers' deteriorating mental and behavioral state. Letter F, the failure to follow up on statements made by the child, Sebastian, and school administrators about his abuse. Letter G, the failure to follow up on statements made by his family's neighbors evidencing abuse and psychological harm. And H, the failure to deploy resources commensurate with the known risk factors. Okay, so again, number 70 is detailing everything that they did, and that's under the color of the law, right? Because they are to uphold the letter of the law. They are the ones who are wearing the blue, right? But then we also have these people that are involved at the state level through DCS, and they are all supposed to be working in the best interest of the child and for the state. But this is all, right here is what we're really looking at, and their inaction and failures, and they failed Sebastian, no doubt about it. 71, the defendants knew or should have known of the extraordinary risk factors in this case through their participation in the physical abuse investigation. Their actual knowledge of Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers' prior documented sexual abuse and its lasting consequences, and their failure to obtain from Seth Rogers critical information about Sebastian's fear of Proudfoot and his deteriorating condition. Their failure to act with urgency in light as they know risks constitutes conduct that shocks the conscience. Okay, and guys, I played that clip from Bullhorn Betty in the beginning of this live, and we played it again and again, right? 3 times we've played it, and that is Seth on Pascal's show right after Sebastian was reported missing, and he was saying that Sebastian has been bit in the face by a dog, but he's not afraid of dogs. Sebastian's not afraid of anything besides obviously his stepfather. Okay? And if they would have asked Seth Rogers that question, they would have been able to gather that information if they would have notified him, but they never did. They never did. And it does shock the conscience, because I think every parent out there should be shocked and worried, especially if you're divorced, in my opinion. I mean, either way. But I mean, just think about how we can't control, nor do we know what's going on in someone else's household. We only know if our children tell us, or if services come in like this. It's so sad, Jilly. It's so sad. Oh, I'm glad you're back, Detroit. And yes, Babs, Katie allowed this. And any and all alleged abuse and harm, mentally, physically, and emotionally, to happen to Sebastian. I agree with that. I mean, I'm just not sure how any of this was overlooked, but so, Katie has a history of not checking on Sebastian. We know that, right? I mean, obviously. I don't know what she's doing or where she is when these things are happening. But I mean, don't you ever just like peek your head in? Hey, you guys doing okay in there? I get it. If you have a friend over at the house and the kids are playing, I mean, you don't have to watch them the whole entire time in there while they're playing say they're playing a game in the bedroom or something like that, right? But you check in on them from time to time. And Katie wasn't doing that if all of that was being allowed to happen under her roof. You see what I'm saying? I'm not saying that it's Katie's fault that this happened to Sebastian. But what I'm saying is the fact that it happened under her roof. I mean, were they living in a mansion that I don't know about when this transpired? Because you would think you would hear some things going on. And it's always a huge red flag if you don't hear anything, right? It's like, oh, it's too quiet. What's going on? What are the kids in there doing? Something they're not supposed to be doing, probably, right? But in this case, it was far worse. So, why was CP not arrested the first time he hit the child? Yeah, I agree with that, Holly. Things would not have gotten to this point. I agree with that. In my opinion, men are a big priority in her life and always have been. Well, she'll choose this guy over Sebastian. The fact that she chose him over Sebastian, the fact that I think you were saying it in the comments of the live, like or oh no, I think it was when we were in Smiley's, Holly said, the cats, right? I mean, most people would have been like, I can't get rid of my cats. But see, you always have to wonder why a person would ask you to get rid of your cats. Like, that's a huge red flag. Like, what do you mean you want me to get rid of my cats? Especially if they're like service animals of your child. Sebastian loved those cats. And was Katie dating Chris when the essay happened to Sebastian? Yeah, to the best of my knowledge, he was. Yeah, they were dating. I'm not quite sure if he was living. Actually, no, I think they were living together. So imagine poor Sebastian not having the friendship and companionship of his cats, and then he isn't enduring this from this older kid was like, I'm your friend, I'm your only friend, using manipulation against Sebastian. Poor Sebastian. It does shock the conscience. So 72 says, as a direct and proximate result of the defendant's deliberate indifference and affirmative acts creating danger, Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers remains a highly at-risk missing youth. Number 73, plaintiffs are entitled to compensatory damages for the continuing deprivation of Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers' liberty and Rogers' familiar association, punitive damages against the individual defendants for conduct evidencing reckless or callous indifference to federally protected rights, injunctive relief directing the DCS to immediately reopen and actively prosecute the investigation with adequate resources and attorneys' fees and costs pursuant to 42 USC 1988. Okay. So again, Seth wants to find his son and he wants justice for his son. And this is what he's begging of the courts to provide him. Second cause of action, 42 USC 1983, substantive due process. 14th Amendment, special relationship. And this is for against all the defendants. 75, we'll just skip that because I always botch that one. DCS sustained involvement with Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers through the 2023 physical abuse investigation, together with its actual knowledge of Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers' prior sexual abuse and its consequences carried forward from the 2022 investigation, created a special relationship giving rise to an affirmative duty to protect him. Guys, in other words, because there was contact with Sebastian, because there was knowledge of Sebastian Rogers and what he was going through all the way back to 2022, this is what the reasoning is, that there was a duty to protect Sebastian because of that special relationship, that they knew these things. DCS conducted multiple face-to-face interviews with Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers, entered the family home on multiple occasions, convened multi-agency CPIT reviews, determined Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers met Title IV candidacy criteria, and exercised significant control over his welfare through its authority to remove him, provide services, or leave him in place. And that's what they did, guys. They left him there. CPS also had an obligation as part of that investigation to interview Seth Rogers, Sebastian's other legal parent, with joint physical and legal custody, whose knowledge of Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers' expressed fears and deteriorating condition was directly relevant to any legitimate safety assessment. Okay. Number 76, having assumed this protective role and exercised authority over Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers' living situation, DCS has an obligation to act with reasonable care to protect him from known dangers. And they didn't. They knew that Mr. Proudfoot wanted Sebastian to die. Okay? I hate that, but if I have to continue to tell people that over and over again, I will do it, because I need people to understand how serious of a danger Sebastian was in. And in the second cause, why they're asking for what they're asking for, and what they're complaining about is legitimate, in my opinion. There's no reason to have left Sebastian that way. Hello, Cassie Roku. Good to see you. So, no, there's no reason. No reason at all. Number 76, having assumed this protective role and exercised authority over Sebastian's living situation, DCS had an obligation to act with reasonable care to protect him from known dangers. 77, DCS breached this duty by closing the physical abuse investigation without taking protective action, despite overwhelming evidence of danger, and by failing to contact or interview Seth Rogers to obtain information that would have materially, informed a proper safety assessment, right? And also, don't you want to talk to all the parents, right? If there are parents that have access to or are involved in Sebastian's life, then you would think that they would be contacting the parents, right? Any of them. You might even contact Seth if Seth had a girlfriend, say. You might contact her to figure out what's going on with things. What has she witnessed? How much access does she have? Because poor Sebastian was really going through it. CP having a homicidal thoughts shows Sebastian CP was having homicidal thoughts against Sebastian, in my opinion, actually reason to get admitted into the psychiatric hospital at least. Well, I'm surprised that he wasn't treated for anything, Holly. It was like New Mexico courts made him do the parenting classes. I don't see any parenting classes or anything that the Proudfoots had to do, like, at all to change what was going on in the house. Like, no counseling was ordered for Chris and Katie, like marriage counseling or anything like that. Which, I mean, obviously they were saying nothing's wrong, everything's fine. Sebastian's making up stories to fit his own narrative, is what Katie said. That's her direct quote. That is her direct quote. And I almost, crapped my pants when I saw that. Hello, country guy. Good to see ya. So, just unbelievable. DCS breached this duty by closing the physical investigation without taking. I'm sorry. I probably need to scroll. All right. So we're on the third cause of action here. 14th Amendment, deprivation of parental liberty interest, and that's against all defendants. Number 79, plaintiffs Seth Rogers has a constitutionally protected liberty interest in the care, custody, and companionship of his son, Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers, under the 14th Amendment. Number 80, DCS knew that Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers identified Seth Rogers as a safe parent. Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers told Laura Boswell that, quote, he feels safe at his dad's home, end quote, and identified his father by name and location. DCS documented Seth Rogers' contact information and confirmed he lived in Clarksville. Wow. You guys hear that part? DCS documented Seth's contact information and confirmed he lived in Clarksville. And he still lives in Clarksville. Sorry, Seth. I think that's out there, right? But he does. He still lives there, and he lived there at the time, and they documented and had his contact information. So again, why? Why did no one contact Seth? Why didn't they send an officer over to talk to Seth if they were thinking that Sebastian was thinking these bad thoughts, right? How come they didn't send someone over and talk to him? It makes no sense. Didn't they want to go see Sebastian's room over at his dad's house and see what was, if everything was in, tip-top shape over there? Or did they just look into Seth and realize that he wasn't a bad guy and I'm failing to understand the disconnect here. I'm failing to understand why everything happened the way that it did. Because in my opinion, knowing this now, that DCS had documented that Sebastian does have a father named Seth Rogers, that he feels safe over there, that, he obviously spends every other weekend there. But they actually documented his contact info and verified his location. It's only about a 45-minute drive, guys. I mean, it's not far. It's not like he lives in another state. Okay, so pure laziness, or what? Okay, 81. Despite knowing Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers felt safe with his father and was being abused in his mother's home, DCS took no steps to facilitate placement with Seth Rogers or to alert Seth Rogers to the danger his son faced. DCS deliberate indifference to these facts deprives Seth Rogers of his constitutionally protected interest in his son's welfare and safety. The fourth cause of action, 42 USC 1983, failure to train and supervise. Against defendants Margie Quinn, Leslie Ritchie, Amira Walker, and the Jane Does and John Does 1 through 15. Okay, now this is going to get into the systematic failure even deeper. Number 83, we have supervisory liability attaches under 42 USC 1983 when a supervisor's failure to train or supervise subordinates amounts to deliberate indifference to the rights of persons those subordinates encounter. The inadequacy in training must be closely related to and the actual cause of the ultimate constitutional injury. All right. And this was the same language and statute that was cited in Eric Craddock's role as it pertains to being the supervisor, right? Being the one to enforce the policies and procedures, and that's why. Good night, Babs. Thank you for being here. Yeah, it's crazy, Lori. It's crazy, and these people are going to be, they have to be held accountable. They just really do. It is just gross negligence. Number 84. As set forth herein, defendant's conduct violated Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers' constitutionally protected liberty, interest in personal security under the 14th Amendment, and Rogers' protected liberty, interest in the care and custody and companionship of his son. Number 85. Defendants Walker and Ritchie, as a team leader and supervisor, had direct supervisory authority over the DCS investigations involving Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers. They received the case files, approved case classifications, and authorized case closures. Okay? So they're the ones that had direct knowledge of the case files. They approved the case classifications, right? Classifying the case as, okay to be closed, and labeling it that Sebastian wasn't in, any danger. But then they would also classify him to be under Schedule 4, or excuse me, not Schedule 4, um, Title 4. So, but then they also authorized those closures. This is the same group, Walker and Ritchie. Okay. And then don't forget that we're dealing with also the social worker, Laura Boswell, based on her visits and things like that to the house. This is the team lead and supervisor that were, reading over those case files and so on and so forth. They knew or should have known of the documented abuse, Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers' fear, the stepfather's admissions, and the Title IV candidacy determination. They failed to ensure that appropriate protective action was taken. Number 86. Commissioner Quinn and other supervisory DOE defendants established, maintained, or ratified policies, customs, and practices that allowed DCS caseworkers to close cases involving children who are at documented risk of serious harm without taking proactive action, adequate follow up, or ensuring appropriate referrals. These policies and procedures were moving forward behind the constitutional violations suffered by Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers. Okay, so they were all involved in this. And when we talk about referrals, I find that interesting because, again, we know that he was referred to Bledsoe Youth Academy. The only way you can get into that school is by referral from DCS. Number 87. The need for such training was obvious. DCS investigating the abuse and fear of a disabled minor from a home marked by documented physical and sexual abuse, and a household member identified by neighbors as harboring lethal animosity toward the child are placed squarely in a situation where the absence of specialized training in vulnerable victim investigations will predictably result in constitutional harm. Again, this was all foreseeable, predictable, and they still moved forward with it anyway. They still failed Sebastian. The failure to prepare DCS officers for precisely this scenario, one that the DCS had constructive, if not actual, knowledge was likely to arise, given DCS's own participation in their proceedings concerning Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers constitutes deliberate indifference. And we know that there were proceedings about Sebastian. The CPIT team met about Sebastian, you know? So, all right. Number 88. As a direct and proximate result of defendants' failure to train and supervise, Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers remains a highly at-risk missing child, and Seth Rogers has been deprived of his constitutionally protected relationship with his son. Plaintiffs are entitled to compensatory damages and injunctive relief, requiring the DCS to reopen and properly resource the investigation with personnel trained in vulnerable victim protocols and attorneys' fees and costs pursuant to 42 USC 1988. And again, this is very important because we need them to reopen this case, and we need them to treat it with the kind of energy that it required, the action that it required, and we need to get to the bottom of where Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers is. Period. It doesn't matter. Fifth cause of action is negligence against all defendants. Number 90, defendants owed a duty of care to Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers and Seth Rogers, once they undertook to investigate Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers' abuse, to act as reasonably competent DCS officers and agency would when faced with similar facts. Again, when you have a child like Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers, who you are investigating abuse allegations, physical, emotional, psychological, in my opinion, you have a duty of care to him and any other child who you're dealing with a similar situation and facts. Number 91, the failures alleged herein are not policy level discretionary choices, but operational breakdowns in the execution of the physical abuse investigation. Failing to remove Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers from the Proudfoot home despite overwhelming evidence of danger, failing to verify conflicting statements made by parties being investigated, failing to investigate the stepfather's admitted physical discipline, failing to address Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers' expressed fear, failing to interview or coordinate with Seth Rogers to obtain information critical to assessing Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers' safety, and to consider placement of Sebastian with Seth Rogers during the investigation, failing to consider Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers' disabilities, and closing the case without adequate protective measures. They left Sebastian in the very home that he was telling them, I'm afraid. I'm afraid of my stepfather. I'm afraid of what he will do if he finds out. I'm afraid of the way that he reacts. We heard him, guys, in the beginning of the show. That's what Sebastian dealt with. Just think of that big old galoot in your face screaming at you. I can't even stand him when he's on the panel. You know, he won't show his face either when he does that, little coward. I'd like to see him show himself acting that way. Is it because he can't stand to watch himself back and see himself that way? Because it's just as bad with behind an avatar. Sitting there screaming, having a big baby fit. Number 92. Once DCS undertook the investigation of Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers' abuse and neglect, it assumed a duty of reasonable care in conducting that investigation. Tennessee courts recognize that a duty of care arises when a defendant's conduct creates a foreseeable risk of harm to an identifiable plaintiff. The DCS had direct documented knowledge of Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers' profound vulnerability, his disabilities, and the known danger in the Proudfoot household. A reasonably competent DCS agency, knowing what the DCS knew, would have removed Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers from the Proudfoot home. Informed plaintiff Rogers of the dangers DCS was made aware of, verified conflicting statements provided to them, followed up on statements from neighbors and mandatory reporters at Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers' school, taken Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers' vulnerabilities and disabilities into consideration, interviewed Rogers as Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers' other legal parent, with joint physical and legal custody to obtain his observations, and offered Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers placement with Rogers during the investigation, and then any other protective measures available before closing the investigation. The DCS did none of these things. Okay, we like 92. We like number 92 a lot because this says a lot. This says everything. Number 93. Defendants' negligent acts and omissions cumulatively amount to willful, malicious, or grossly negligent conduct. These actions constitute a conscious indifference to the consequences when a reasonable person would have recognized that the conduct was likely harm to another. The conduct described herein arises to this standard. Grossly negligent, guys, and that goes for Sumner County. Country Guy says I might be wrong, but rumor was they were told Seth was not active and never followed up. Oh, I have heard that too, Country Guy. I have. You know, I think whether they tell them something or not, I think DCS has the responsibility to follow up, and that's just my opinion, and I think that if they had done their due diligence, like they looked him up at least and they knew what his contact information was, that he lived in Clarksville, they checked in on his location and stuff. So if they would have just made a phone call, I think that we would have had a different outcome. And so I mean, obviously they didn't follow up, so I can't say you're wrong. But I don't know how true that is, either about whether or not, I guess we'll just say whether or not Katie and Chris had said that Seth wasn't active. Poppy loves his Lady Freedom. I get triggered hearing him rage. I think of him with Sebastian and him hurting him. My dad was like that, terrifying, praying every day Sebastian is found and healing can happen. Yeah, Poppy, I'm with you. Look, I mean, there people used to use a lot of different tactics too that were more sociably acceptable, especially when some of us were growing up. Um, and I just myself, I don't agree with it, but I also don't agree with it even further when it's like a step parent, and that really gets my goat. But, I didn't have a step parent, um, but I did have a divorce. And so I kind of understand from that point of view. Um, I would never allow for anybody, though, like even my partner, to do that. Um, and I think that's why I get so angry with Katie is because she was just so much allowing for this, and just she's always sticking up for Chris. Like, she can't help herself, you know? Um, that's right, Poppy, and healing can begin for Sebastian, praying he's protected and home with Seth soon. I mean, I'm really hoping that we have a positive outcome because of all of this. You know, this might be able to get us down to the bottom of things. Sharon Marlowe says they will try and settle out of court, but Seth's lawyers said he wants a jury trial. Good for him. Yeah, and I think that's the most important thing here. Because even if they tried to settle for $1 billion. I think the purpose of this is greater than that, and there is a scheduled hearing, and that has been shared also. Where did I have it? It's someplace like right in the front um, of my messages. So let me just hold on. Um, let's see. So it's going to be the Rogers versus Department of Children's Services et al., the one that we are looking at right now. And that's going to be a conference date of November 12th, 2026 at 10 a.m. And the judge, Magistrate Judge Jeffrey S. Frensley. And that was put out, I believe it was yesterday or the day before. And I forgot to tell you guys, so I apologize. That's why I like to make the videos, so that way I can put all my little details in there, so I don't, forget to mention something. But no, I'm with you, Sharon. And so that conference hearing makes me think of a couple different things. Are they trying to settle? Are they going to, get together and figure out when the trial is going to begin? Are they going to start jury selection? Are they going to make those accommodations and arrangements at that conference? But it doesn't escape me that they could try to settle. That was my first thought, actually. So, um, you know, they just minimize everything. They do, Cinderella. And it's very serious. And Sebastian was very much dealing with a lot of horrible feelings from this. And, I mean, that's another thing that just hurts my heart. I don't like that for anybody, especially not for Sebastian, Um, yeah, I want to see them in court and see justice served with the silver bracelets. Well, and that's the thing. I think that's the most important takeaway from both of these is that we're asking for, Seth is asking for a new investigation. But I mean, I think if I was to put a poll up right now and see how many people think we need a brand new investigation, I think we would have an overwhelming amount of people like we did last night, and so yeah, the purpose of the lawsuit, truth not to settle. Exactly. It's the truth, and it's about opening that back up. We want the good investigation that was always supposed to happen that never did, right? Because we're hoping that that will help us find Sebastian and get to the bottom of where he can be, because that's the main goal, is finding him. How would they know what they told Seth? I mean, I'm just guessing from what Seth has said from the beginning, that he was never contacted. You know, that's a good question, though, Cinderella. So we got number 93 says defendants' negligent acts and omissions cumulatively amount to willful, malicious, and grossly negligent conduct. These actions constitute a conscious indifference to consequences when a reasonable person would have recognized that the conduct was likely to harm another. The conduct described herein arises to that standard. Okay, and we're going to get into these. 94. Defendants breached their duty through the acts and omissions described herein, which constituted gross negligence and a conscious disregard for Sebastian's safety and Seth's rights as a parent. Boom. 95. As a direct and proximate result of the defendant's negligence and gross negligence, Sebastian remains a missing child at risk, and Seth Rogers has suffered substantial ongoing harm, including the loss of his son's companionship and the severe emotional injury of not knowing whether Sebastian is alive or dead. Ugh. 96. Plaintiffs are entitled to compensatory damages from the governmental entity. Defendants to defendants to extent permitted by the Tennessee Governmental Tort Liability Act. This was also named in the other lawsuit and filing against Eric Craddock and Carter and the Sumner County Sheriff's Office, Sumner County, TGTLA, and to compensatory and punitive damages for the individual defendants in their individual capacities for their grossly negligent and willful failures. 6. Cause of action. Intentional infliction of emotional distress. Okay. And this is against all the defendants. And I'm going to show you guys the way they acted at the gathering. Number 98. Tennessee recognizes a claim for intentional infliction of emotional distress where the plaintiff proves that 1. The defendant's conduct was intentional or reckless. The conduct was so outrageous that it is not tolerated by civilized society. Number 3, the conduct resulted in serious mental injury to the plaintiff, and that's Lemon versus Williamson City. And again, guys, Leach and Taylor, at least Leach versus Taylor, also Tennessee. We're going to go over those because, again, they're both named in both filings as setting case precedents, and they're cited for that reason to show that there is cause and, that there has been cases that have been brought to light before. Number 99, the facts support a finding that defendant's conduct was reckless and intentional. DCS consciously ignored Sebastian's documented abuse, disabilities, vulnerabilities, and the stepfather's documented animosity towards the child, and Sebastian's fear of him. Richie, Walker, and Quinn, as the final policymakers with direct supervisory authority, made deliberate choices to end the investigation without protective action, to leave Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers' biological father in the dark, and to leave a disabled child in a potentially dangerous home. And we know it's dangerous because he's missing, and he has been missing for over 2 years now. These were not inadvertent, these were not inadvertent omissions, but affirmative choices made with conscious disregard of their effect on Sebastian and his father Seth. 100. Defendants conduct meetings and exceeds the outrageousness threshold. Okay, they conducted these meetings, guys. They had proceedings, right? So their conduct meets and exceeds outrageousness the threshold for outrageousness. Defendants are law enforcement officials with exclusive authority over the only official investigation into Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers' disappearance, abuse and neglect. Their abuse of that exclusive authority to effectively abandon a profoundly disabled child case while maintaining a monopoly over the investigations that prevent Rogers from seeking redress elsewhere is outrageous. That means, he can't get any help. Seth has been asking for help and he can't get any more help. The conduct alleged is beyond what any reasonable person in a civilized society should be required to endure for those entrusted with the duty to protect his child. 101 as a direct and proximate result of the defendant's intentional or reckless outrageous conduct, Rogers has suffered serious mental injury that no reasonable person would be expected to endure. The prolonged, unresolved disappearance of his disabled teenage son, combined with the law enforcement agency responsible for finding that son going completely silent for nearly 2 years. This is not the transient distress of an ordinary grievance. It is a sustained, open-ended mental anguish, including the inability to grieve, plan, or act because those whereabouts and fate of his child remain unknown, and the agency that could answer that question has chosen silence. 102. This cause of action is asserted against defendants Ritchie, Quinn, and Walker in their individual capacities for their personal, intentional, or reckless outrageous conduct as described herein. Punitive damages are sought against the individual defendants in their individual capacities. And 103 as a direct and proximate result of the defendant's intentional and reckless outrageous conduct, Seth Rogers has suffered and continues to suffer severe emotional distress, entitling him to compensatory and punitive damages in the amounts to be proven at trial. All right. So we have a prayer for relief. Okay, and a couple other documents to go over. I'm just going to pop back over to chat and see what you guys have to say over here. Oh, thank you, Bo, for renewing your membership. Yay, thank you so much. Bo is a very important member of our dragon tribe. But I still want to throw her a party. Thanks, Bo. Thank you very much for renewing. Why didn't DCS take Sebastian when she was last at the house? Should have seen through the BS, blaming Sebastian, the very one begging for help for fear of CP, giving CP a pass to blame Sebastian. Exactly. I agree with that. And, he was telling the DCS worker the truth. Sebastian was, because then Proudfoot said the same thing happened. So we had those two stories matching up, and they didn't do anything, but they cited in their paperwork that they didn't feel that it was correct, and they thought it was abuse and degrading towards Sebastian, the actions of Chris Proudfoot, that is. Detroit says it's not about the money for Seth and Sebastian, but it's sadly the only language these people understand, in my opinion. Exactly, Detroit. Money talks and bullshit walks, and that's the only thing those people understand. It's so sad. We have seen how CP can manipulate people. He thinks he's a smooth operator. Yes, Poppy. That song reminds me of CP. Ruined the song for me. You know the song? I do. Yeah, smooth operator. Yep, I do. Couldn't figure out why I was getting so many ads. LOL, my membership expired. Oh no, Bo. I'm sorry. I know. I have to turn them up so that way, I could do it the honest way, because I know it's sometimes they make them fly out there though. Like sometimes it's weird. Sometimes when I put them on, there's people don't say anything, but then other times it's like, oh my gosh, there's a bunch of ads. Outrageous is a good word, right? It is, Holly. Outrageous is a good word. Just thinking that they knew, like, I don't know. I just couldn't go home at the end of the day knowing that Sebastian just looked at me and told me he's scared of that buffoon. I wouldn't be able to sleep that night. I just wouldn't. And that's probably why I couldn't do a job like that. Bo says the answer pissed me off. They are annoying though during a live, because it's just like, because it cuts off fast. Yes. No, I think he is though, because he's definitely manipulated people, and I want to know what happened there, where they're just closing his case out and not doing anything to Chris Proudfoot, and imagine how defeated poor Sebastian felt. I do want to pull in also, just while we're chatting, the gathering of voices, and I want to show you guys that guy hitting the sign. Because in my opinion, I don't know, what information Seth's lawyer has seen on that. But just seeing how he was treated by law enforcement is very odd to me. Yeah, here it is. Okay, let me pull this in. And I was live when this all happened, which was so weird, because everything was kind of, coming to a head that day, and it was almost over, the gathering, that is. So it was just odd that they chose to do it then like that, like how they did. Here we go.
Like it's
Okay, and you're gonna see him come up and hit the sign here, and I did slow it down.
Andrew Griffin, Andy, I need a drink and left a drink over there. Oh yeah.
Yeah. And you can hear Bullhorn Betty giving her first and last name, because she was actually being interviewed by the local news at that point. So and then you see that the other lady here is waving at the officers. And he's staring and gonna point. You see him? And there's Seth. I want to go back there. Sorry, I should have put it on mute. But again, I want to show you guys how he hit the sign. Right there, he hits it. You can see this lady right here is going to wave at them as they're walking by. We were not being rude to these officers at all. She waves. And then you can see him staring across the street, and they start to point and make gestures at people just standing there with signs, honk for Sebastian. And again, it's heavily pixelated because I had to zoom all the way in.
He's going somewhere.
Okay. I cut it off there because I just wanted people to see that little piece right there where they were hitting the signs. I mean, it's just, why? There's no reason for that, and they were doing that. And that's why in this lawsuit, Seth is saying they're deliberately putting him through this mental anguish. And I would say they are. I mean, why would you hit the sign? Why would you touch it? Lori, that's my thing. Hey, Rosebud, why would you even touch it at all? Rosebud says, "Hello, everyone. Justice for Sebastian Rogers. Never give up. We will find you. God bless you, young man. Your father loves you and is looking for you." Thank you, Rosebud. And, Seth has really done a lot here lately, that we can see, everything kind of coming to, but even back to going in front of the police station and trying to, speak with these people, let them know he wants to find his son, he wants answers, and for them to act the way that they did towards him, I was completely appalled. So I just wanted to show you guys that again. So this is a prayer for relief. Wherefore, plaintiff respectfully requests that this court enter judgment in their favor and against defendants and award the following relief. Number one, compensatory damages in an amount to be proven at trial, but not less than $15 million. Okay. Number two, punitive damages against the individual defendants. Number three, injunctive relief requiring the DCS to reopen active investigation of Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers' case with adequate resources and implement mandatory communication requirements with children's family when their well-being is being investigated. Number four, attorney's fees and costs pursuant to 42 USC 1988. Five, prejudgment and post-judgment interest. And number six, such other and further relief as the court deems just and equitable, right? Because the judge can come back and award more. Imagine how demoralizing he must have felt. It's like a ton of bricks. It does, Holly. And it's so sad to know that poor Sebastian was dealing with all of this. It's sad to see Seth have to deal with this after all of this time. It just really is. It's absolutely egregious, outrageous, horrible. Now, the jury trial is demanded. Plaintiffs demand a jury trial on all claims and issues so triable. And this was all filed on July 16th of 2026, right, by Darren M. Ritchie Esquire. Certification of service. I certify that the plaintiff's complaint and jury demand has been served upon the following parties and counsel of record by electronic mail, electronic filing, and PR by depositing a copy thereof in the United States mail, properly addressing the postage and paid. So service list was Tennessee Department of Children's Services in Nashville. Margie Quinn, Commissioner of Tennessee Department of Children and Family Services, Nashville. Leslie Keel Ritchie, Nashville. Laura Boswell, Tennessee Department of Children's Services, Nashville. And Amira J. Walker, excuse me, also Nashville, right, by the Tennessee Department of Children and Family Services, all being sued in their, official and individual capacities. Now, this is just a civil cover sheet with just some identifiable questions, right? Just, wanted to show you guys this. They are they fill this out, citizen of parties, right? They're U.S. citizens. It's a civil rights complaint. Original proceeding. They do cite the 42 USC 1983 that we've talked about several times in both filings. Brief description of the cause is going to be failure to protect a child. And the demand is $15 million. And then also they are demanding that jury. We know this. And then this is just an instruction for the attorney, right? But it just shows everything um, that's required. Authority for civil cover sheet. Okay. So all official, very well put together. It's not terribly long. It's pretty short and sweet and to the point. There's just a lot of information, herein, as they would say, a lot of information. They really were very unprofessional, and I don't think it shows what they were putting Seth through, and a total disregard uh, or concern shown to Sebastian, a missing child. Yeah, Poppy, their conduct, their misconduct, has been awful. And I feel for Sebastian. Um, I feel for Seth, and I know that Seth would rather us pray for Sebastian, right? Because he's the one that's missing. Hey, Sparky Doo. But here it just seems like Seth could use our prayers as well, because as a parent, and I hate reiterating this portion of things, but as a parent, not knowing whether your child is alive or dead out there is a very, very horrible situation to have to be in. And no parent should ever have to deal with that. No parent should ever have to deal with losing a child, in my opinion. It's absolutely horrible. And I don't know what I would do. I don't. I just don't know what I would do. Such a stain on the whole country. They should be ashamed. Or excuse me, county. Yeah. Imagine what they're dealing with, and I just think that's so um, crazy. Um, all these filings are based on official documents. Yeah. Where did I have that article. That's what I wanted to tell you guys about. Is an article um, by Chris Gregory, and this was from July 23rd of 2026 from Main Street Media. I did reach out to Main Street Media, because there was an article that was posted where they um, interviewed Katie Proudfoot, and she said that Sebastian disappeared between the hours of midnight and 6 on there, but they never would get back to me, because all I wanted to know is if Katie said that directly or if that was a misprint, and they wouldn't answer me back. Um, which is fine. I'm not hurt over it or anything. I thought it was odd. Poppy Love says, thank you for being there, Lady Freedom, and each of you who went to stand with Seth for Sebastian. I wanted to be there so much, and I want to go next time, or at least support who can get there. Yeah, absolutely, Poppy, and thank you so much. It was my pleasure. It really was my pleasure to be there. It was a good days. We went for a couple days, and the days that I went were really great. And, all of that happened on the very last day. So I was disappointed in that, but overall, I was proud of Seth. I was proud of us. I was very proud of Betty. She put the whole darn thing on. Sonia made some beautiful things to put out. Got to meet the real Me Too, Mr. and Mrs. E. We had astrology for Mystics with Jen there, of course, and just a bunch of good people. People that are willing to come out and step up and support Sebastian. I'm going to be a fan of that all the time. I think we definitely need more people, but I know that it's so hard, and it's very difficult. People work. And things like that. I'm hoping that, we're going to find Sebastian through this filing. But yeah, I think awareness is a big one. I'd like to just go back to Tennessee to do some awareness, flyers, um, and that sort of thing. See how many people we can get to put them in their windows. That area down there in Nashville, too, in downtown Nashville, I mean, I would imagine they would have a place where you could put like flyers up for bands and stuff, and I wouldn't see them having a big issue putting Sebastian's flyer up. So, yes, Detroit, yes. Um, Poor Brandy is going through the same hell, and still hasn't gotten justice for her son. Ridiculous how much they protect the criminals, and the families are still suffering with no answers. I can't stand that either, Detroit. That's really something that gets my goat too. And the way that these people are just treated so well in jail and prison and everything. They have all these rights. It's just like Adam Montgomery getting a new trial, Letitia Stout getting a new trial. What about the victims? You know, and they live better than most of us in the joint. Yeah, they should be big time ashamed. So, thank you, Sparky, for that. Hey, Gigi, good to see you. Rosebud says, not sure if you talked about this. It's been bothering me all day. That speech CP gave about Sebastian out duking all those agents. Yeah, duping the agencies and poof. Um, Rosebud, I'm glad you said that because I wanted to play that tonight and I would have just completely spaced it out. Because I did share that out, didn't I? I think I shared it. I tried to share a bunch of stuff on my posts. But I did share a guy, 15 years old, a young boy, Michael Blanco, that was sent to me today too. So he's missing out of Pottsville, Pennsylvania. Too. Let's see. Come listen. That's Smiley. Oh, here it is. Yeah, here it is, Rosebud. Let me play it for you guys. And I want to do a live tomorrow where we talk about, or the next live we do, I want to do it where we talk about how Chris Proudfoot has never established an alibi as well. But here we go. Let me get this rolling for you guys. I'm so glad you said that because, like I said, I would have been mad at myself later. Like I was supposed to show that. Okay, here we go. Because I try to plan out the shows, and what clips I'm going to show you. So I'll share them a lot if I don't make it a separate video. Okay, here we go. This is it. Let me get this window. Okay, listen, words do matter. What a strange thing to say. Sebastian Ray Jake Rogers was reported missing on February 26, 2024. This interview conversation or discussion took place on March 20th, 2024 at Smiley Stories World. At this moment, Sebastian had been missing for 24 days.
We talk about it whenever they come and they talk to us or they call us on the phone. This is a case that literally has got all of these agencies stumped. Okay, and I'm saying this very openly as far as playing devil's advocate. Let's say one of us was suspected of foul play. Let's say something, right?
Right.
There's no way that we would outdupe all these agencies. There's no way. However,
This 15-year-old boy has managed to outdo everybody. Call him
You see, you hear him clapping.
Houdini. He always wanted to be a ninja, and we kept goofing around. Well, he has officially done it because poof, nothing.
Mm.
And it's, the cops have told us this is a case that will go down as a researched study case where they're asking the questions and looking for answers, and literally nothing. Everything they try to come up with, blank. We talk about it whenever they come and they talk to us or they call us on the phone. This is a case that literally has got all of these agencies stumped. Okay, and I'm saying this very openly as far as, playing devil's advocate. Let's say one of us was suspected of foul play. Let's say something, right?
Right.
There's no way that we would outdupe all these agencies. There's no way. However, this 15-year-old boy has managed to outdupe everybody. Call him Houdini.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Say his name. That's right, Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers.
He always wanted to be a ninja, and we kept goofing around. Well, he has officially done it because poof, nothing.
Who is we? We refers to the speaker, Chris Proudfoot, and at least one other person who were, quote, goofing around, end quote, with him, Sebastian, the person who wanted to be a ninja. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
He has officially done it because poof.
He has officially done it because poof, nothing. Because poof, nothing. Chris Proudfoot, Sebastian's stepdad, said he has, quote, officially, end quote, done it. Quote, 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 quote. Okay. He has officially done it. Officially is an adverb that describes something done formally with the with the authorization of an authority, such as a government or organization, or as stated publicly. And that's the Merriam-Webster dictionary.
Nothing.
Poof, nothing. Right, Chris? Do you think a 15-year-old boy manages to become a ninja and goes poof all by himself? No, ma'am. Nope. Never. You will never convince me. Nope.
And it's, the cops have told us this is a case that will go down as a researched study case where.
Yeah. Are you serious? Sebastian had only been missing for 24 days at the time this was said. 24 days missing, and the cops told you that, quote, will be a case that goes down as a researched study case, unquote. What the?
They're asking the questions and looking for answers, and literally nothing. Everything they try to come up with, blank.
Your stepson is missing. There had to be no sign of him anywhere in 24 days, and you're acting this way, right? And this is what you chose to tell the world about his disappearance. So well said. Where is Sebastian? February 26, 2026, Sebastian has now been missing for 2 years. Did Sebastian outdupe everyone? Did Sebastian become a ninja? Did Sebastian walk out of his house all by himself and become a ninja and go poof, leaving no trace of his existence anywhere? Oh my gosh. Standing ovation. Did Sebastian become a research study case after only being missing for 24 days?
This 15-year-old boy has managed to outdo everybody. Call him Houdini. He always wanted to be a ninja, and we kept goofing around. Well, he has officially done it because poof, nothing.
Guys, this is Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers. He did not go poof. And we got the proof that he did not go poof. There's no way on God's green earth. That is the number one. That's the first thing we can check off the list. None of us go poof. None of us go poof. It is effing ridiculous, Bo. It is. It's absolutely ridiculous. It is ridiculous. Janet says something went very wrong at the Roadhouse. I believe he's going to harm someone. I hope it's not his daughter next time, in my opinion. You know, Holly, he has hurt so many. He has hurt Nina's kids. He's probably hurt other kids that we don't even know about. It was probably like a girlfriend-boyfriend situation. He'd be hauling off, backhanding kids. He loves to use that backhand, doesn't he, in my opinion? All right. Poor Sebastian. Again, horrible. Horrible, horrible, horrible. And, nobody says that. Nobody says that. Cable, read the formal definition. Cable. Hey, Crybaby Walker. Good to see you. He's so effing disgusting, and what KP loves. I don't buy her fake tears. Try again. I can't either. I can't with her anymore, Crybaby Walker. I can't. I cannot even try to continue to understand what that woman was thinking ever, because, this is prolonged. This is over such a long period of time. Unbelievable. I did want to read this. Main Street Media real quick too. Hendersonville home. Excuse me. Sorry. 2 years after teenager Sebastian Rogers disappeared from his Hendersonville home, the youth's father has filed federal lawsuits against the Sumner County Sheriff's Office and the Department of Children's Services. The lawsuits claim that DCS failed to protect Rogers from a, quote, dangerous and abusive environment, end quote, and that the sheriff's office conducted a quote, inadequate, negligent, and ultimately abandoned the investigation, end quote. Rogers disappeared from the home he shared with his mother and stepfather, Katie and Christopher Proudfoot, in February of 2024. According to the FBI, Rogers was last seen on February 25th, 2024, after returning home with his mother. The next morning, Katie Proudfoot found Sebastian missing from his room when she went to wake the then, and it says 14-year-old. We know he was 15-year-old up for school. Seth Rogers, Sebastian's father, claims in the lawsuit against DCS that the organization investigated the home twice but closed both cases, finding, quote, no concerns, end quote, despite what Seth Rogers claims were a home that is, quote, marked by physical abuse, emotional degradation, and a stepfather whom neighbors reported, quote, hated the child and, quote, wanted the child to die, end quote. So, again, I'm not trying to disparage anybody's efforts, but Sebastian was 15 when he went missing, and also what's being alleged by Seth in these documents is direct quotes from the DCS records, end quote. Okay. Hey, Tori. Hey, Tori. Tori says, I have a feeling Sebastian got in trouble on Friday and he was punished before Monday morning, in my opinion. I think a lot of people think that too, Tori, that something happened on Friday. Yeah, a lot of people have cited that and wondered about that, So it's okay, Crybaby Walker. We're all on the same page on that. I mean, my outbursts have been many lately because it's terrible, and it does make me sick. It's enough to make any of us sick, especially because here we are, um, you know, being told that we were wrong and quit spreading rumors and quit with the drama. And really, it was because we were spreading what happened to Sebastian around. Seth was ridiculed for, telling us of the horrific abuse that Sebastian was enduring. That's not his fault, you know? He may have gotten in trouble on Saturday. It could have been any time during that weekend, and it seems like Sebastian was always in trouble and walking on eggshells, in my opinion. We just don't know because he looked like he was getting in trouble at the Texas Roadhouse, in my opinion. Um, the lawsuit claims 2022 DCS investigation documented fear on Sebastian's part that his stepfather would hurt him after Sebastian disclosed sexual abuse that allegedly occurred while the family lived in California. DCS launched a second investigation in 2023, according to the lawsuit, after allegations that the stepfather admitted striking Sebastian in the stomach with the back of his hand. The lawsuit claims DCS closed the case with, quote, no services needed, end quote. The lawsuit also claims that DCS did not notify Seth Rogers of the investigation despite his shared custody of Sebastian. Seth Rogers claims the agency documented warning signs of abuse but did not remove Sebastian and place him with his father. In this filing against the sheriff's office, Rogers claims that investigators failed to verify the stepfather's alibi, in which Proudfoot claimed to have been 3 hours away when Rogers disappeared. Seth Rogers also claims that Sumner County Sheriff's Office failed to investigate why surveillance cameras at the Proudfoot home were reportedly not working at the time of Sebastian's disappearance. And we're going to do also a separate live on that. Okay, so I'll be working to piece out a lot of these allegations because there's a lot to them, right? Especially because of what has been said, statements that were made in terms of why they didn't have any cameras. We had the update that I showed that Jules had sent over, that they were getting an update on the cameras, not an upgrade. But where were the cameras the night that Sebastian went missing? So we'll get into all that too. Um, Sabrina, so good to see you. Gross negligence is right. Gross negligence is right. And deliberate indifference. They deliberately didn't give a crap, in my opinion. Detroit says, I still wonder about that weekend to this day. Was there a poker party? I know. Did he get in trouble for being on the uncle's laptop? Where was CP that weekend, allegedly? Those are all great questions, Detroit, and questions that I've thought about a lot of times, So that's right. That's right, Crybaby Walker. This is a missing child. We care, therefore we don't quit. That's right. Refuse to quit. Exactly. And Sebastian's out there somewhere, and I'm sure that he would be more than grateful to know that he has so many people that are caring for him, that want him to come home. So thank you for that. In addition, Seth Rogers claims in the lawsuit that he had no communication from the sheriff's office in approximately 18 months. Seth Rogers is seeking $15 million from DCS and $10 million from the Sumner County Sheriff's Office, along with punitive damages. Both agencies denied to comment, citing pending litigation. Attempts to reach Seth Rogers and his attorney for comment were unsuccessful. The FBI is offering a reward of $50,000 for information leading to Sebastian's whereabouts. Anyone with information regarding his disappearance can submit tips to the TBI at 1-800 TBI find, or you can send tips to uh, TBI at tbi.tn.gov, or you can contact the FBI. And of course, if you see Sebastian, call 911, call his name, say Sebastian, and if he turns around, then that's probably Sebastian, or a different kid with the same name, which is a pretty big coinky dink. And we don't really like those here. So, I mean, we just, I don't trust a coincidence. There are coincidences, but Poppy Love says, what do you think she was telling him at dinner? It seemed, in my opinion, that he asked why and wasn't happy about whether she said whatever she said. He wasn't doing anything wrong, just eating. I know, Poppy, and it's so heartbreaking. I don't know what he was being told, but I do know that he was doing the shrugging and the nose, right? Like he never really said yes to anything. I think when Katie was showing him her phone, he nodded his head affirmatively once, but other than that, it was all negative responses, like shaking his head no and then shrugging his shoulders why. And there was a couple of times where Katie asked him why. And how we know that is because she turned up her palm and was doing like the why gesture, right? And she was pointing at Sebastian with her utensil that she was eating with. And she was also getting a little bit, into an aggressive stance over the table, in my opinion. So, whatever they were talking about, I feel like it wasn't good. And I feel like she was getting on to Sebastian. Hey, Ann Brock. Ann Brock says, I hope and pray that Sebastian will be found soon. Thank you so much. Lori says, same. Tori says, and CP and KP kept talking about Sebastian getting too close to others' faces. That makes me believe it had something to do with the niece instead of Faith. Well, and because Faith was so far away, that would make me wonder too. And let's say they did get together for the poker party, right? And Sebastian was being too close. I can see that. Yeah, I can see that. I just feel like, anything that poor child was doing was turned into, like the biggest deal on earth, right? Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're doing that. It concerns me about the pull-ups too, because everybody was asking about the pull-ups as well. Nobody thought that that was okay. And then it was really concerning when Seth came out and just said, look, they weren't letting him wear underwear at the house. They gave me all of his underwear. Like, why would Chris touch any of Sebastian's, underwear? He's a really weird guy. He's a freak of nature, in my opinion. You know, willful neglect. Um, uh, Sorry, excuse of a mother in this case. Yes, Sabrina, I would have to agree. I would have to agree. And I've tried every which way to slice it with Katie. I've tried to wonder if maybe she was being abused herself, every which way. But everything just kind of comes back to the fact that, she's neglected her son and she's allowed for all of this to happen. And I just can't with that anymore. It's just not right for Sebastian. We need to find him, right? We need to find him. He'll tell us. Once we find him, he'll tell us what happened. In my opinion, I believe that 100%. Poppy Love says Craddock seems like such a wimp letting CP show him up, in my opinion. It just makes no sense what LE acts like they have. Well, I don't know which LE acts like that because it is astounding to me too. But now that we know that, there was police involvement with Sebastian, everybody knew Sebastian, and they didn't do anything, I think it became a cover their own, bottom CYA type of a thing. And they didn't want anybody to know anything was going on, which is horrible. But it does appear that that's what's happened here. Detroit, yes, Silvers on the scene went to his job site, and they told him that CP got sent home for being belligerent, being unsafe, allegedly. Yes, he did. And I think that was what Betty was told too, that he had a horrible attitude that morning and he was told to go home. And then Chris was like telling everybody, well, he told Smiley that too, that he got home about 1:30. Home about 1:30. And what about the detective that met CP in Memphis? I guess that was to give him the polygraph at the FBI field office there in Memphis. But I don't know. Her demeanor at dinner was so off and she was preoccupied with the plan, in my opinion. I think so too, Crybaby Walker. She was definitely doing something on the phone, and then her taking pictures of Sebastian is just so weird the way she was taking them. You know? I mean, it's not like she was getting in with a selfie with him. It's not like she was getting him smiling. It was as if she was taking them secretively, the pictures, that is. Her body language says it all to me as well, Detroit, because Sebastian wasn't doing anything wrong. He wasn't he didn't seem like his demeanor was off, like that he was in a bad mood. Because you know how sometimes, I mean, obviously we can tell because we're emotional beings, but you can see that, maybe we're down and out, or we're angry about something, or we're sad, or we're happy. We can see those expressions and that kind of manifest outwardly. But we didn't see that from Sebastian. It seemed like it was all business with that dinner. Katie just sliding the menu over to him the way she did. Um, and then there was something because, we see him get out of the vehicle and he's plugging his ears and walking into the restaurant and everything. And he just doesn't seem like, you know, there's anything that's bothering him until they start having those conversations. He seems pretty neutral until Katie starts in with the fork and, or spoon in his face and, that sort of thing. Rosebud says, I can't wait to hear DCS's reasoning why, if they started, or excuse me, their reasoning why, if they stated Sebastian was an imminent danger, that they didn't investigate Seth's home as a safe place to make sure Sebastian could go there. Why didn't they? I mean, I think that is a really great question because it still doesn't make sense to me why they wouldn't either. I mean, why would you choose to put a child in an environment with people they didn't know, especially a child with autism who's so used to routine? That's got to be 10 times scarier for Sebastian because obviously he's used to certain people. I would think that would be their first line of defense would be to contact his father, especially because he had joint legal custody of him. You know, I'm just very surprised myself that they didn't. I mean, especially because they had knowledge of him right away, and I feel like Sebastian was hinting to them too, like, "Hey, I have a dad, and I'm safe at his house." And I feel like Sebastian wanted the workers to tell, but he didn't want to tell. But I also find it interesting that they got a hold of Seth's mom and got official statements and formal statements from her, but they didn't get a hold of Seth, you know? So that would have been the next step for DCS to place Sebastian in a safe place and investigate the bio father to make sure there was a safe place. They really just dropped the ball on this. And you're right, Rosebud, they did. And that would have been a good solution. And I think it would have become a long term solution, honestly. If they were to do emergency placement, then Seth would have had the resources and help that he, could have used in order to get Sebastian into certain placement, in terms of like the school and stuff. You know, I would think that they would need to fast track his education or at least give Sebastian some tools to be working. Excuse me, I almost said work from home. Oh, hello. To be, schooled from home. And the thing is after the pandemic, there was a lot more, in my opinion, resources for children to do stuff like that from home because we had to, necessity is the mother of invention. So when we had to do, at home schooling and all of that stuff, I mean, I think they would have been able to find options and the school wouldn't have been such a big deal. Although I do applaud Seth for keeping Sebastian's education at the forefront. Tori says, I feel the essay was still bothering Sebastian, bless his heart. I think so too, Tori. I do. I do. I think it was weighing heavily on him. And that's the one thing that just, breaks my heart so badly for him because he was struggling and, he was like, I'm gonna tell that I'm having this, trouble, and it's really bugging me. And he did the right thing, and I think that bothers me so badly too, is because Sebastian did the right thing, and he still, and and I get upset about that too. If I do the right thing and I'm still getting shit on, I get pissed, okay? And I'm a grown ass woman. But it bothers me, right? It's like, well, I did everything right. How come I'm still being punished or why did this happen? I mean that's anybody, that's human nature, but think about a 15-year-old kid who has these, you know, um different abilities, right? He's going through a lot. And for him to have done the right thing and then he gets crapped on for it and then they leave him in there and he's like, oh my god, like I just made it worse all around, right? I thought, speaking up was gonna help me, but it didn't. It just made things worse. you know Rosebud says facts are measured by one's own words and documented reports. That's what will get the answers. The litigation is huge. Well, and that's my biggest hope, and that's where the focus really needs to be, right? Is this, reopening the case, and getting this discovery part of it, because they can't get out of that part of it. They're being forced to be held accountable, and that's every single last one of them. Anybody that was involved, all of them that had the guilty knowledge. Talk about guilty knowledge. Denise says, I think he is still alive. The reason I think that is because of the way they didn't want any flyers with his picture on it. And the pictures that came from from KP were pictures of Sebastian years younger. And I think you're right, Denise. And there was uh, in May on Queen Bee, there was a panel and people were giving Chris and Katie advice on what they can do to spread awareness, right, in terms of flyers and stuff. And Katie said, "We put flyers out around here. We got this. You guys can put flyers out in your own area." And that concerned me too, and it made me think that Katie was fine with, like, say, me putting flyers all over Florida, but don't come here and spread them. And so that's what kind of, I don't know, that's what kind of made me wonder. So, yeah, it was big time on his mind, Lori, and he needed help. He did. Poppy Love says, I think they were thinking he was going to be going to Seth's soon. Unfortunately, they underestimated the seriousness of the harm Sebastian was in. Seemed like a paperwork plan messed up his home visit. Well, and they were this is a huge problem with DCS in my opinion. The way that they conduct these interviews and things, you can't just put a child in another room or on the front porch and expect them to be in a position where they can be truthful about telling on their parents, right? Let's be honest. If we're Sebastian, he's got a stepfather named Mr. Chris, okay? He's got a mother, Katie. He knows Mr. Chris and mom doesn't really like him that much. He knows Mr. Chris and mom want him to go away. He knows Mr. Chris and mom are sick of dealing with him. And every time he has an accident in his pants, it's a big deal. They're not going to be understanding of that, even though they know why he's having accidents like that. And I think there were a couple of different reasons. I'm not Sebastian's psychiatrist. I've never talked to him. I've never seen the notes from his psychiatrist. But if I'm guessing, I think if there's an element of fear and an element of SA, then there could be a couple of reasons why Sebastian's having trouble with that. That's a really big issue, and I think a lot of us understand that. I think there's a lot of people that don't. And sometimes I wonder if some people are like, well, that's embarrassing to talk about for Sebastian. It is. So why did Chris Proudfoot go out there and tell everybody in the beginning that Sebastian likes to do that in his pants? Because nobody likes that. It's uncomfortable. It makes me want to make Chris Proudfoot sit in his own excrement in pee. He already is a pee pants in my opinion. But I mean, is it comfortable for you, Chris? Do you like wearing pull-ups? You're making a 15-year-old wear pull-ups. It's unacceptable. And how dare you? But yet they're making him do that. And they're giving him no grace whatsoever and being like, "Hey buddy, I understand this is tough for you. You're going through it, Let me get you, let me swing by the school." I mean, would it have killed them to put an extra pair of clothes in Sebastian's backpack if they knew that he was having trouble like that? Because they could have. They could have sent him to school with an extra pair of underwear and extra pants. And maybe even a shirt, because if sometimes if you pee, it's going to go other places, right? Look, I hate this. But let's think about it from our mom hats. If you knew that your child was struggling so badly, wouldn't you try to make it easier on them instead of try to make it harder on them? I mean, there's no care there. And at the end of the day, I understand that Chris and Katie are not being sued per se. They're named in the filings because they are the ones who were supposed to be caring for Sebastian. But in the court of public opinion, in my opinion, I place that on Katie because she had a duty as a mother to show kindness, care, compassion, and love to her son, who she knew was going through a very, very tough time. She owes her son and has a duty to her son, Sebastian. Katie, that's you, to take him away from an abusive stepfather. If that stepfather is abusing him, then she could have gotten out of it, guys. And here's the thing, Katie is not this indigent woman who didn't have the means to get out. Chris Proudfoot wasn't controlling her finances, because there is such a thing as financial abuse. But that was not present here. Katie could have went and got a hotel room for the night. Katie could have went and got her own efficiency apartment, or a nicer one at that. Katie could have called Seth and said, Seth, I cannot believe this shit, but I got to tell you, my husband has lost his ever loving fucking mind, and I need you to take Sebastian this week for the week. Period. Nobody did that, though. Nobody did the right thing. There were several solutions to the problem, yet not one person decided to do the right thing. You know? Thank you, Poppy. Just terrible. And I feel so sorry for Sebastian. I hate this for him. I hate this for him. I wished I was wrong this whole entire time. I wish I could sit up here and be like, you know what? I owe Chris and Katie an apology because I got it wrong. Well, guess what? No, I did not get it wrong. And neither did any of you. All the flyers I put up got taken down, or something happened to them because they're gone. Tori, I'm so sorry. You know, it's sad, and it's unreal. And the same thing was happening in Michael Monkey Vaughn's case. They were taking down the posters and the signs. And, his mother Brandy was over there showing everybody, like, look, she's like, there used to be a sign over here. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, it really does baffle me. Yeah, only wore diapers at their home is fear, Janet. Yes, in my opinion. I think it was both. I think it was, I just don't want to get into the details of a reason for SA, but we can all figure it out. I just hate that for Sebastian. I hate it. I wish I could take it back for him, and help him understand that it's not his fault. But we got to find him first. So, I mean, it's really sickening. Denise says CP is a POS, and Sebastian couldn't stand to be dirty, so why would he like dirty diaper? Hello. Thank you, Denise. Great point. Or excuse me, Dennis. Excuse me, Dennis Kelly. I'm sorry, I misread your name there. I think a couple of times, so I apologize. Yeah. A kid that doesn't like to be dirty, but you're forcing him to be dirty and sit in his own filth. Way to go, CP. Way to go. Way to go, Katie. And why is he dictating what Sebastian does? Anyway, so many people failed him, Janet, but I'm sorry, Katie holds the she's the one. She's what is it? She's the last one. The buck stops with her, in other words. Poppy Love says that needs to be changed. You would think that they would be trained to not put a child in that position and then leave and think that was all right. They didn't take Sebastian seriously. Well, and I agree, and it happens all the time. The way they do these things is like, you're asking for the kid to get hurt. and you already know that his father, his stepfather has said that he doesn't want him to be alive, like that he hates him and doesn't want him to be alive anymore. And you left him there. Like that should have been the day that they took him right away and put him with his biological father, right? And investigated. I'm not saying like, don't investigate. I'm saying investigate. But they didn't. They just kind of, you know, allowed for him to stay there. And then they take him on the porch. Okay, well, what happened here? I mean, of course, Sebastian's going to be like, oh, I'm fine. I'm just doing my homework, right? Like, oh my God. But the fact that he kept on coming out and asking for help, and don't forget, guys, the one call came in at 9:30 at night, so that had to have been a neighbor that made that call, in my opinion. The school was a different situation. The school was him telling the teachers, look, I'm having, a lot of issues with the essay and everything like that I endured, and just because it happened in another state, it happened under their care, you know, it happened under their care. No, they never, and she didn't care to keep her son safe. She did not protect him, Janet. Lori, I mean, my goodness. Tori says, oh, but guess what? I'm putting more up this weekend. I think that's fantastic. And I'm so grateful to you guys, to you locals out there. That's why I really would like to come out and put flyers out with you. I would love to be there with you, Tori. I really would. I would love to be there with you to put out flyers because, that is very important because a lot of local people don't even know, like the local news was like, oh, and Katie works for Brinks Home Security and her cameras weren't working that night, as if it was like the first time they'd ever heard of it. Like, I just don't feel like the awareness is there, I might have just gotten a loudspeaker of my own and put it out there and played Chris Proudfoot's words, you know? So, no, she's never allowed to speak by herself without him there. KP, you know what happened, and we won't give up until you believe the truth. Detroit's like, this is it. I'm there with you. I hope you have had I hope you never have a moment's peace and see his face every time you close your eyes. Wish this for you from a mother. I know. And see, this is what's terrible is that, again, Sebastian is an innocent child in all of this, and he never deserved for any of this from his mom, who he loves. How devastating for her to pick Proudfoot over him. And Katie does hold the key, Janet. She does, Bo. She holds the key. Poppy Love says Hendersonville won't let flyers be on poles on streets. They have a worker go take them down, yard signs, etc. Only at businesses if they agree. Okay, that makes sense, Poppy. That makes sense. I know you can't put them at the bus depots and stuff like that, which I wish that you could because I looked it up. You know, so I think Sebastian may have been wetting the bed because feeling insecure, and Chris made him wear diapers to school to humiliate him. Okay, it is Denise. Okay. I wanted to make sure at first. I was like, maybe I got it wrong. All right, perfect. Thank you for making me aware. All right, Denise, we love you. So, gosh, it just makes me so sad. It just makes me so sad to think that they left Sebastian like that. And he's trying. He's like, okay, I'm telling people, but nothing's kind of working out. And then Chris, I can only imagine him coming back in. Okay, eat your food. Like he said at Smiley's interview. Yeah, they do. They threaten people. They have threatened people. So I've always thought his words need to be played more. Yes. Well, and I had no idea about any of this because, I mean, I guess I shouldn't say I didn't have any idea of any of it. We just weren't 100% on it, right? We didn't have the quotes that we have now and the dates, the times, that are being alleged. How can we get outside agencies, and what about the big search groups that help state to state? Well, they help now that they know they know waiting for Sumner County to ask for their help obviously isn't happening. Well, and I know what I know about like the bigger agencies, like say Texas EquiSearch, just as an example. The parents, or excuse me, the family members have to ask them to come in, but then also they have to be approved by local law enforcement. And what's being alleged is that they're not, you know, allowing for other agencies to come in and help. And that's a really big red flag to me, because why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they want everybody to help? Why wouldn't they want to accept help, especially if they're like, we have nothing, we don't know. We're at a loss, right? Like that's when you're going to be like, okay, can I have some help, right? That's when I am. I mean, I try to do everything, and this is just maybe my personality, but you know, if I have a problem, I do everything in my power to find a solution. But if I don't know what to do anymore, I'll ask for help. I'm not above that, but I just try not to ask for help right away, right? I'm usually the one that like waits to the last minute, like, okay, I really need help now, which I don't know how smart that is, because sometimes it puts you in a pinch. You're like, I'm in a really bad pickle, I need your help, right? And you're like, why didn't you tell me when it wasn't this bad, type of a thing. But at this point, I just feel like they've been in a really big pickle. But again, they refused help because they don't want anybody to know how badly they screwed up for the last 2 years before, or excuse me, we'll say, year and a half before Sebastian's disappearance. Because we're looking at September of 2022. That's when Sebastian went to his teachers, right? And he said, I'm having a lot of issues with what I went through. I'm feeling down on myself. I'm feeling horrible about myself for this. And it's really bothering me. And I'm having these, thoughts, and I'm having these feelings that I don't like. Right. And I think we've all had intrusive thoughts before, or feelings, especially after trauma, because it could make you want to, you know, and I don't care. I'll just share one that I've had, in the past. It was like, I used to think to myself that I will never get away from my abusive ex-husband until one of us literally kicks the bucket. And that was an intrusive thought. And you can maybe say that's a homicidal thought, I guess. I don't know. Or, harming another person. I didn't ever think of harming him, but I also kind of was coming to the realization that it's either him or me, right? Like when I pass, I will get peace from this. If he passes before me, I will get peace from this. And that's a horrible way to think, right? Because I have a child with that person. So it really bothered me that I was feeling that way. And I did bring it up to a counselor. So, in my opinion, maybe that's how Sebastian was feeling to some degree. Maybe he was like, hey, this is not a good feeling to have, right? This is an awful feeling to go from somebody who doesn't wish harm on anybody to start having those feelings. Or to be like, hey, I mean, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of dealing with this, and in feeling this way and thinking these thoughts, and everything, but I have to say that Sebastian is so brave, because not everybody can go out and do that and tell people and be that brave and vulnerable. It takes a very, very brave soul, you know? And especially because look at the outcome. Nobody was listening to him. Nobody took him seriously. His mom explained it away and said, oh, that's his narrative. Oh, it's just his narrative. Sebastian likes to say things to fit his narrative. And you know what I think is funny about everything that we saw quoted in this paperwork, we've watched Chris and Katie do themselves. Just like her trying to tell Smiley, Katie, that is, trying to tell Smiley, like, oh, well, he's just got these issues. And it's like, yeah, but you're awkward in public too, Katie. You know, it's upsetting. Hello, Kylie's Nail Candy. So, lady or someone, next time you talk with Seth, ask him if his attorney knows about the SCSD refusing help that has been made known to them for the begging and still rejects search groups help. I think that was named in Craddock and in the filing for Sumner County Sheriff's Office in Craddock, you know, that they turned down resources. Well, you know, it's like when they turned down the U.S. Marshals coming in. I also heard that they turned down Sheriff Grady Judd coming in to help. Like he offered some resources and help, but see, they knew that if Grady came in, he wouldn't give a fuck if they had he wouldn't have given a damn if they had a badge or not. He would have came in there and said, I'm laying down the law. And I'm just like Sheriff Grady Judd. I'm going to tell you right now, I don't care if you're my best friend or not. If you're doing wrong, I'm going to tell you about it. And I'm probably going to be harder on you the more I care about you. And I'm going to tell it like it is. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. And if you betray my trust and you know, that's if it's Joe Blow off the street, they're going to get, you know, it less than somebody that I know, right? Because I'm disappointed. I can't believe you would do such a thing, kind of a thing, right? I don't just protect somebody because I know them. I've just never, I just wasn't raised that way. Detroit says, why wouldn't you get an advocate for his disabilities to come in and help him with coping with everyday issues? They had the resources and money, according to CP, big pissy pants. Disney ain't cheap. Boom, Detroit, exactly. No, they wanted the free referral and send Sebastian over to Bledsoe Youth Academy, where kids were, I mean, it was literally being investigated because kids were being mistreated in there. You know, I agree with you 100%. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Same here, Holly. I would have ran away. I would have ran away. I'd have been like, see ya. Wouldn't want to be ya. Don't want to live here. You know, and I did think that in the beginning. I'm like, I bet you Sebastian did run away. You know, like that was before we kind of got into it. But like, I mean, the first couple of weeks, I was like, this kid had every reason to run away, but I don't think he did. You know, but I was thinking about it. You know, yeah. I don't know how Katie could go to Disney without Sebastian. That I would be the most depressed person at Disney if I had to go there without my daughter. And that's just me, you know. I mean, but I would be depressed as fuck if I didn't know where my kid was and I'm over here doing activities that I know that they would enjoy. You know, that's like me going to the Hunger Games movie when my daughter's missing. I couldn't do it without her. That's our thing. You know what I'm saying? It's just, and there's nothing sacred and special there. And I think that's a big problem too. And it's a huge red flag for me. But when I see and hear Seth talk about their D&D nights, and that Dungeons and Dragons, and that they like to play Magic the Gathering, and that they would get together and do that together, you know. Those are the things that you do to find interest and common interests to bond with your kids. And that's really, really important because that's what builds trust with your child, right? That's what builds a closeness with them. I don't know of anything that Katie and Sebastian did together to build that. I guess she said they would make projects from Home Depot together. But I'm talking about something really special between them. It just seems like Katie was always catering to Chris's needs and what he wanted. And even when he was out of town, she couldn't get, a breather from him. Then again, she could be just as toxic as him, and I think she is. You know, I just know what it's like to be involved with a person like Chris. They don't let you have any type of breath away from them. It's suffocating. It's too much. It's possessive. It's obsessive. He's always wondering what Sebastian and Katie are doing. I could just see it. Send me a picture of Sebastian eating his food. What? Why? Mind your P's and Q's, Proudfoot. I mean, but instead she's like, okay, here, let me send you a picture of him. Let me embarrass Sebastian. Oh yeah, and let's let Aunt Melissa embarrass him too at his birthday and pick on him and bully him, and she's recording him and putting him on Facebook. Disgusting. You know? Yep, she did. She damn well did pick a loser. You left him behind and spent time on vacation in Disneyland, but you couldn't give him the love and time that he needed, which was 100, 100, 100 freaking free. It is 100% free. You left him behind and picked the loser. And I know there was an ultimatum, guys. I know it wasn't listed in this paperwork, but I'm not going to think any differently until I find out otherwise. And I believe wholeheartedly that Mr. Chris told Katie it's either him or me, and she chose him. She chose the loser, Detroit. She did. Poppy Love says there is also alleged mortgage fraud investigation that Millersville Police Department in Sumner County that had alleged evidence. Other agency went and took it and threatened them, shut it down. Yep. Oh yeah, and we've talked about that too, Poppy Love. And I want to get a little bit more into that as we go along here and kind of incorporate it, because that's a big one for me. I mean, it's big when we see these big organizations coming out and saying there's corruption in TBI. I haven't heard a peep out of Sean Taylor. You know, they wanted any help because they didn't want any help because they didn't want Sebastian to be found. Well, and I think that they know where Sebastian is. I think that they know, and again, I can't say 100%. Otherwise, I'd be telling Seth and getting a hold of him, send him a smoke signal. I don't care what I had to do, but I'd be like, I know where he is. Let's go get him. Not even you go get him. That's your son, and Sebastian, doesn't know any of us. I'm hoping, if he ever saw any of it, it would be good things that we're supporting him, that we want to find him, but we don't know what he knows. We don't know where he is, So, not sure if the mortgage fraud investigation had anything to do with Sumner County Sheriff's Department, but it was right before Sebastian went missing. Yes. Oh, yes. And, it makes me wonder because of Craddock, right? And again, I know his wife makes a lot of money, but also, that's quite the house for a sheriff. And we know that there was huge real estate scamming going on, schemes going on, money laundering, that sort of thing. Yeah, definitely. God forbid that pervy pig should hook up with somebody else. I know. Well, I mean, that would have been the best thing to happen to Katie, even though I'm sure it would have been the perceived worst thing at the time. But, I mean, she would have dodged a huge bullet. That's what makes me think that they're in cahoots, because there would have been a break. There would have been a breakdown between them, but there hasn't been. It's because, in my opinion, they did something together. And Detroit says that she was sending that to Yellow Jacket. He was the image on the phone. We caught it from the jump, in my honest opinion. I believe that too, Detroit. I do. I believe that too. Um, I believe that because I slowed it down myself. I took the original, because at first I'm like, I don't know what people are looking at. And then I was like, well, maybe I could try to recreate it, or like slow it down. And I mean, it comes into focus perfectly. And we also have to remember we're watching it from the camera, and the camera is focusing in on what the phone is doing. You know, yeah, I can't shake that either. You know, yeah, she did anything to keep him, crybaby, and we've seen that. You know, in different cases. One that's very notable that we went over a few times here is little James Hutchinson's case. And his mother, Brittany Gosney, her boyfriend's name was also James, and he told Brittany, "You need to get rid of your kids, or you guys are all going to be out on the street." Right? Was the ultimatum there? And so she hurt little James, and they ended up throwing him into the river. And I can't say with 100% certainty that they didn't hurt Sebastian, but um, I can say that I think that this sending him away option was something that they were in the middle of doing, and he was already in the system. And so that makes me wonder about that. Right? But it's just the same old story, song and dance. Javea Harris, most recently, another child that was reported missing to police, and then lo and behold, they knew the whole time. Um, to say that Sebastian's case is unique is an understatement, but the fact that they all knew, and that there was so much involvement with all of these agencies, and they all covered it up, it makes me think that there wasn't foul play involved, even more so. And then I kind of teeter totter back to Chris's statements and what he was saying about Sebastian to the neighbors, and it scares me. I mean, it just does. So, oh no, coffee crime and cats. Oh, your doggy got skunked. Oh my goodness. Tomato juice. Give him a bath in tomato juice. So, yeah, where is Sebastian, Katie? Yep, Bowersox and real estate. Exactly, Janet. Yes, thank you guys so much for hitting the thumbs up, and thank you both for thanking everybody. So, ooh, pesto. That's what I'm talking about, Detroit. That sounds so good. We saw it and everyone else picked up on it. Yes, exactly. Exactly. I still think Yellow Jacket is very involved. I do too, Lori. In my opinion, I can't shake it. And when I first saw the still, I was like, oh, because TJ had sent it to me. Our friend TJ, a lot of you guys know TJ from the streets, but um, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like looks like Sebastian's T-shirt. That's what kind of caught my attention. And then when I slowed it up, and to show everybody and to look better at myself, I was like, oh my gosh, it looks like he's on the phone. And I sent that tip over to At Night. I sent it to TBI, sent it to FBI. Nothing, you know. I know. Poppy, it's okay. It's okay. I knew it was going to happen because, I mean, it's upsetting now, isn't it? It's just upsetting to know that Sebastian dealt with this, and we're also invested, Yeah, totally, because I'm right there with you. Hey, Stacy, Michelle, good to see you. Thank you for being here. So, excuse me, I had a cough there for a minute. But yeah, I mean, it's just amazing to me that so many agencies were involved, and now that we have that knowledge, I'd like to apply it some places. But I'd also like to take some of this filing and talk about Chris's alibi to start with, because I think that is something that we can revisit. Um, since it's never been established, it's never been confirmed, it's never been denied, we've never seen it, right? We've never been able to make up our own minds about it and be like, oh yeah, that's Chris on camera, right? And that's another thing. How hard would it be to just get those? I mean, I would be doing it myself. I would be going to my job and saying, look, I need my camera footage of when I came to work this morning. It's kind of important. you know I got a bunch of people in the public that thinks I hurt my stepson, is what I'd be thinking to myself, right? So it's just so odd, Lori, and it just comes into focus so well. And it kind of looks, in my opinion, like, when Sebastian was sitting at the table and she took that picture. um I mean, she snapped a couple of pictures, if I can remember correctly. So um it's just unfortunate. It's just unfortunate that we're here today, you know. And it was absolutely a systematic failure. It was a huge communication breakdown, or just the lack of communication, the deliberate indifference. And again, in this filing, we're seeing, like, look, Sebastian told. So Katie didn't tell about Seth. It was Sebastian, allegedly, according to all of this. And he said, look, I have my dad. He lives in Clarksville. The DCS worker, right? And that would have been Laura Boswell. She did have documented contact information for Seth Rogers, and she failed to reach out to him. But why? Who interfered in this, and why did they interfere? Is there some interference that we have to worry about? You know? Yeah. Well, and that's another thing. He could have been recording Sebastian too. Puppy loves his OMG yellow jacket. I saw he was recording Sebastian. I saw him on his phone, and I really think something was up with the Texas Roadhouse 2 weird phone activity and looking around, standing over, or excuse me, standing but not ever ordering. Yes. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Oh no. Coffee, crime, and cats. That's a big doggy. Oh my goodness. That's a lot of tomato juice. Oh my goodness. Maybe you could get a spray bottle and like spray. mm. His fifth wife. What? Wrong CP. I mean, here's the thing. I bet you his other wives have horror stories about him. I would imagine. I'd reckon that they do, that they have quite the stories to share. And a lot of people think that they should be, that people should, get a sworn affidavit from them. And, I can't disagree. So, I love you too, Poppy Love. I'm gonna be hopping off here too, because I would like to get some of these statements put together. And again, we will listen to that horrible conversation about Chris's alibi. Um, we will do that because that was it's awful. It's viewer discretion, earmuff situation, um, because it is. But again, I do have um who I think is the person who's alleging to be Chris's boss. So I'd like to show you guys that too, because I've had that research for a little while and I just haven't been able to get it out. Because we've been talking about other things, but I think it's important for us to revisit that and to look into it. Because, it's it's a big part of this. Seth had to get his alibi going, or we would maybe side eye him still. If he wasn't at work that night, we might be side eyeing Seth too. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, it's only fair for Sebastian, in my opinion. Aw, thank you, Jessica, for sending the flower. That's so sweet of you. Thank you very much. Aw, good night, Bo. Good night. Yes. So, oh, there you go. Okay. Detroit has a remedy for the skunking. Wear gloves because the spray is oil based, but mix 1 quart of peroxide, a quarter cup of baking soda, and Dawn dish soap. Tomato juice doesn't really work that great. Okay, well there you go, Detroit. I bet you the baking soda would be a good one. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I think so, Lori. I do. Always, Sebastian, come home. We're praying for you. Aw, XX. He's so perfect and knows everything. Even a blow up doll wouldn't get with him. Cry baby, I know. I'm right there with you. I don't see how he's gotten any of the ladies that he's gotten. I just kind of think he and Katie are quite the match because they don't discourage each other from doing wrong. They encourage it, and that's a scary combination. So I mean, that is a scary combination. So, well, I love you guys also very, very much. Let's come back together and reconvene about this alibi for Chris. Let's talk about Chris's alibi or the lack thereof, and why law enforcement, would decide to overlook that major detail. So we'll talk about that. And you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Keep praying for Seth and Sebastian. Let's pray that justice prevails and that we get some answers, the answers that we need to find Sebastian. All right, guys, you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you all next time.